week's Voice Party is brought to you by IOPvideo.com. We're all stuck inside and content is king right now. So if you want to create some content, have some video shot, advertise your small business, start a podcast, whatever, check out IOPvideo.com. We do it all and we will do it all for you. IOPvideo.com. We make things look pretty.
Oh snap, we got a very special guest with us on a voice party.
What's up?
Oh,
hey Evan, how's it going?
What's good? What's good? How you doing?
I'm good. Man, I tried to call you the other day because I had something of interest to ask you.
Okay.
Call me after podcast is over, all right?
Gotcha.
Ooh.
Don't forget.
I won't.
All right.
What's up, Evan?
Hey, how you doing?
That doesn't sound like this at all.
Man, it's another day getting it done. I'm ready for this.
How you getting? How you handling this cold we're having tonight? It's very confusing.
Yeah, it's quite confusing. I don't know what the hell's going on right now.
Yeah.
Man, it's the Bay Area, man. Bipolar weather is a thing over here.
Well, here's what's crazy. I'm out in Brentwood right now, and it's like 83 degrees, and there's no fucking sun. So I'm sitting out in the backyard in a rocking chair, perfectly fine.
I envy you not.
You know what, man? I that Tuesday, the hottest day of the week, I was not mentally prepared for the hot weather just yet. So I went to Half Moon Bay, dude, and it was great. That was like the first time I've been. I went later in the day, so almost nobody was at the beach, and some little local grocery store guy let me park in his parking lot, which is because all the parking lots are closed for the beaches, which makes sense. But the little grocery store, I guess he's not having any fucking customers right now. Let me park in this parking lot of his business, which is like a few feet away from the beach. And man, it was nice, dude. It was like, so I haven't really felt hot weather.
Did you at least buy something from his shop?
No, I brought a beer with me. I mean, I was just gonna go look at the water for a few, you know.
That you park in his lot, you don't even bother to purchase a Gatorade or roll a paper.
No, it wasn't one of those. It's one of those places that, like, I don't know if you've been to those produce markets where all they have is like fruits and vegetables. No, like, it's one of those.
You didn't buy a papaya or like an avocado or something to take home and fix with your dinner or your breakfast?
Nah.
You like to cook, man. You could have bought something from there.
You know what? Dude, man, I've been cooking a lot. I got a little garden going.
Okay.
We got a deep freezer, so I got, it's been great.
That's what's up. So welcome to the voice party, King Francis. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How's everything with you guys? I'm just, in the same kind of situation as everybody else, just trying to, stretch it out and make everything as good as possible.
Yeah, no, we just trying to figure out how to produce a podcast without our studio. So, it's an uphill struggle sometimes.
Yeah, you're a recurring guest. So I feel weird bringing you up because it's like, you're already one of us, kind of,
Yeah, it's only natural, right? Like, I got the most appearances, I think.
Yeah, and some of the most views. You got your videos.
Pattern. No.
Straight up, man. Straight up.
Yeah, no, definitely. You're like a little
champion, dog.
Horseman,
I appreciate it. Now, the cool thing is that that's only because people just stick with the go to work stuff, and then we've been doing all this other stuff. So it's just synergy, and people really stick with it. We got like a little loyal base, and I'm starting to kind of see it. I've been able to kind of look at what was kind of lacking in the go to work stuff beforehand, and take the time now to be taking more advantage of the audience and kind of connecting with people on a personal level, doing Zoom, Skype sessions, all this type of stuff. So I'm just trying to stay busy,
Yep.
I feel it, man. I've been struggling to get some freelance work. All my gigs this year canceled already because of the whole pandemic
right now, man.
So finding video work right now is a bit of a struggle since you can't be around nobody.
Yeah, I could imagine.
My father asked if he was like, "Is IOP Video, are you with Phil doing like a documentary or something about what's going on?" And I was like, "It's a pandemic, Dad. Yeah, but you can't stop the creatives." And I was like, "Well, you may not be able to stop the creatives, but the creatives have the sense to stay out root of the virus." I don't know. I mean, that was an idea though, a documentary about what's going on. I don't know. Dad may have.
Well, you can tell them we're doing these episodes, which is kind of a journal of what's happening, and
and also, we had that top secret project we were working on with JD before all this started. Yeah. We could easily incorporate this into that.
And I got a bike
That's
now,
true.
so we could add that to the...
Got that bike.
Yeah, but this is a very.
I got a bike, and I got a bike that I got from Evan too. One of those exercise bikes. No, Evan knows about the bike I got from him, but I also got a real bike, a mountain bike. I said that earlier too. Yeah, I trained with him, so I thought I'd let you know right now. I got an actual bike, and I rode it for the first time today, first time in years. I kind of thought my neighbors were getting a kick out of seeing the fat guy in a bike, and luckily I bid it before I left my parking lot, so no one saw. But yeah, that's been great, man. It's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah, but this is a very special episode because, as we've been saying at the plug at the beginning of the episode, content is king right now, and the one thing getting us through this pandemic is some bomb ass content. And Dark Side of the Ring season 2 just wrapped, and you are, of course, our go-to wrestling aficionado. Right. And I like wrestling, and Joaquin likes wrestling, and JD has a La Parka mask, so it's a perfect.
I've seen Nacho Libre a few times,
It's a perfect dichotomy of stuff. So
yeah, but yeah, so we're gonna be talking about Dark Side of the Ring season 2 because I think it was an excellent season, a huge step up from season 1, and they covered a lot of ground I was not expecting, and it's a pretty big deal. So what did you've seen everything, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So Joaquin, you've seen everything, right?
Yeah, I've seen everything. I've seen everything of season 2.
All right, that's what's up. So I guess let's just go down the list. They kicked things off with probably one of the darkest things that's ever happened in pro wrestling, the whole Benoit incident. Like, it took up 2 whole episodes to get through the Benoit tragedy.
Right. Oh, that was crazy.
That was a hard fucking start to the season, man. Like, I was like, what are they gonna do next? Because that's like that's not just in wrestling, I remember when that news came out, like, that was huge. Like, not just in wrestling, in pop culture in general.
Yeah, one thing I really obviously there's gonna be spoilers. A lot of times, Nancy Benoit kind of gets treated like a victim, and she doesn't really get brought up for her contributions in the wrestling industry. Yeah. She kind of forgotten, just gets remembered as Chris Benoit's wife that he murdered. Yeah. But I like how this episode reminded people of her with Kevin Sullivan and her in ECW, like her whole career, because she was pretty influential in the female valet in the early to mid 90s. There weren't really a lot of those. We had Miss Elizabeth, and that was kind of it for a while. And she this whole resurgence where we had a new wave of play. I like that, how they shone a light on her, and they didn't just make her a victim; they showed her contributions to the industry as well.
And how she was one of the first personalities. I didn't know that about her. That was what I actually found interesting. It was more than just they always came out with a girl on their arm, But she had personality, and she contributed to the whole. And I mentioned that she is, if anyone, because it kind of, like you said, spoilers. She could potentially be a Hall of Famer eventually.
And the crazy thing about this for me was I had no idea that, because for the listeners out there that don't know, I don't have cable. Everything that I watch is streaming through my phone somehow, and I didn't realize it was a series. So I thought it was just this YouTube Vice thing that just popped up on my feed one day, and then I was like, "Oh, sweet! They did like a Chris Benoit documentary," And I was just like, I had no idea they were going to do follow-ups and stuff. So when I shared it with the Voice Party message, Facebook Messenger, my intent was this mini doc is huge because as far as I know, within my lifetime, within my fandom, the Chris Benoit murder suicide is possibly the largest news and the most tragic news of all wrestling, of all my, not all wrestling history necessarily, but from my wrestling history and for like my generation. And so I was like, yeah, we should totally review this. And then I was like, wait, there's another one and another one and another one. Well,
See,
okay then.
yeah, we wanted to talk about this, and we contemplated doing each episode, but we didn't want to spend 2 months just talking about Dark Side of the Ring. And I didn't realize how long this season was because the first season was just 6 episodes. So I thought 6 episodes, and I totally forgot that they just kept adding shit. So it got to be like every week I was just like, I think this is the last one. Oh wait, no, never mind. No, this is the last one. Oh wait, hold on, never mind. This is more. No, couple more. So when we finally got to the last one, it's like, all right, I guess we're just going to do a big ass episode on the whole goddamn season. Then
you know what? How many episodes are there total? Because I watched some from the first season.
So there were 6 episodes in season 1, and then season 2 had 10 episodes.
All right, cool. Because I'm gonna be honest, I watched most of them from season 2, which we're going to talk about. But I want to say this. This is like, after watching it, and I was a big fan of Chris Benoit from like the first time I saw Chris Benoit was in WCW versus NWO. I mean, yeah, it was in a video game.
Yeah,
he was my favorite character to play with. You remember that one? Remember that video game in the Nintendo 64?
Classic, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that was the first wrestling game I ever had.
Yeah, dude. And I
was WCW NWO World Tour.
I like that one better than the one that WWF, back when they were WWF, came out at the same time. Even though I like WWF.
Or WrestleMania 2000.
Yes, I like WWF way more, but I like the video game, the WCW and NWO, a lot better. But anyways, the character I like to play with was Chris Benoit. And I was a big fan of him, when I first saw him in the video game, and then I saw him and they showed it in the documentary, that one of his first appearances when he showed up with the what was it, the Radicals, when they first showed up against the new age,
Triple H.
No, the New Age Outlaws, and they did that. That was awesome. And you know what? I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, watching the whole thing. I mean, we'll get into the story, but I think I kind of wish someone killed him. You know what I'm saying? Like, not instead of what really happened. But
like the Kevin Sullivan theory, where he went in there and made it look like a double homicide, suicide.
Not even Kevin Sullivan so much as more than like
just anybody had killed him as opposed to him.
That would be way better than
because that's the big thing with the whole Chris Benoit thing is, as great as he was as a wrestler, and as much as he accomplished, and as much as he was admired, and as much as he should be a Hall of Famer, that last weekend in everybody's eyes pretty much overshadows his entire career, and that's almost as bad a tragedy as what actually happened. You have this man who dedicated his life to this and wanted to be the best and wanted to be a perfectionist, and he's completely forgotten because of the last 48 hours of his life. Which, I mean, is a fucked up 48 hours. So,
but now everybody's gonna have a different opinion on it. But I the more I learned, like, this taught me a lot about, like, you and I had talked before the documentary this series came out about, was it Chris Nowinski was his name, who became the doctor?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And CTE and its effects. But actually seeing, Chris Benoit go to a medical professional and say, hey, like, I've had a lot of hits to the head, and realize there's something wrong with him. And maybe had we known more, I say we, like we were involved, but maybe had they known more and he had known more about his condition, that could have been prevented. I'm a big proponent of you know, there's a difference between a choice that someone rationally makes versus a choice that someone is incapable of making rationally. Like, if indeed he committed those those murders because of the brain damage, which is something he would not have done if it weren't for the brain damage, then I say blame the brain damage, don't blame the
Yeah.
man. You know what I mean? There's a certain, nuance that a lot of people aren't going to embrace there. Some people, oh, he's a scumbag, but it's like, no, dude had the brain of, like, what was it, a 90-year-old? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I, as someone who has a family member who's suffering from Alzheimer's, I can't blame her for anything she does because she can't help herself, no matter what destruction she may wreak or what she does. She's out of her mind. And I would be foolish to sit there and treat her as though she was responsible for her actions at this point. So,
it's a crazy
you know what
thing
I'm
though, because
saying?
like to think, okay, his brain was a 90-year-old person's brain. I mean, you don't hear a 90-year-old's fucking, I don't know, 90-year-olds off in their fucking
Well,
grandchildren and family,
they said he had so much. Yeah, well, they when they did the autopsy or when they studied his brain or whatever, I forget what the exact thing was, but they had determined that it was because of the brain damage he suffered and the trauma that it resembled like an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient more than a 41-year-old man or whatever it was.
Right. And after having, lived with someone with that condition, it's kind of like, just
Yeah.
imagine,
Yeah.
I can see what it would be like for a 40-year-old man who's completely muscle bound to have a hallucination and think that it's possible that when he was doing that to his wife, he could have been thinking he was in a wrestling match, wrestling like the Big Show or something. And then, because I've seen the hallucinations happen in my own loved one, and I could totally see him just phasing out and then doing the same thing with his son. But then what happens sometimes, a lot of times with people in that condition, is they snap out of it, and then they like, I've had my loved one say things like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? Am I losing my mind? Why am I walking over here? What was I doing? And then they come back to themselves for like brief moments. So I think, he comes back to himself and he's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Why are my wife and child gone? And then he can't live with the pain of what he's realized he's done, so he hangs himself. I mean, I stand by that interpretation, especially based on the medical evidence that they present. And based on that interpretation, I can't blame Chris Benoit for his actions. But then again, I've had some experience with someone who has a brain that is Alzheimer's, and I get it.
Now,
Thank God she's not like muscle bound and capable of strangling me to death, because that would be
Now,
so
problematic.
with the episode, I thought
You know.
it was really good. Both of them were. Um, man, that whole subject with Benoit is crazy. But like after kind of spending some time in the ring, I can attest to one thing: it's dangerous as hell just to even take a bump. I know people like in between Revolution, Pro Wrestling Revolution, and Big Time Wrestling. I know people who have had injuries just in training to get concussions, to all types of stuff, neck injuries, all that stuff. And this is just in training. This is before you even do a match. People get injured to the point where they got to take months off or can't wrestle no more just off training. So you can imagine with the schedule how it is, especially how it was, and back in the day, because it was the road schedule was off the wall. You taking bumps like that, especially back in those days, because I would say like back then they were taking like probably tougher bumps, harder hits.
chair hits.
Yes, some like that, especially those guys who was chopping and knocking the hell out of each other back in the day, man. They used to really put it in, right? It's still folks that do that now, but I'm just saying it was more of a commonplace thing back then. But
You know what? I'm gonna say
And
this real quick, man.
hmm.
When I watched that documentary, dude, I'm not gonna lie, man. I thought about Evan because you're the only person I know that does that, and I was just,
No, it's
obviously I
real
care
though,
about you.
bro. It's real though, bro. Because the thing
Yeah.
is like Man, the first thing, and I think Phil and them got tape of this. One of the first bumps I damn near took, like when you gotta do the schoolboy or whatever that is, when you gotta just jump up, take a flat bump right on your back, but you gotta
Yeah.
like jump up hella high and land flat on your back, with your legs up and everything. Man, I overshot it and landed damn near on the back of my head. I almost broke my neck right
Jeez.
there. You get what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
overshooting. That's what I'm saying. It's
Wow.
it's not an easy environment by the least. You know.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I was thinking about like worried about you. Like I hate to
Yeah,
sound
it'd
like
be
a mom,
crazy. No, I
but
appreciate you, but that's why I say when I started to wrestle, I started to more so understand how your brain can get like that. Is what I mean to
right.
say. So
Yeah.
when I see,
Yeah.
so when I seen the
So
documentary and just what I like about Dark Side of the Ring is that, like Phil said earlier, it's like they go more in depth than what any other documentary is going to do right now or
Right.
that have done, because they're all WWE sponsored for the most part. But it just gives you tidbits that you didn't know,
yeah.
and
So what I was going to ask is like, as you and me and our whole clique of people, we're wrestling fans as this
right,
happened. So we remember like when the news broke and all the details as they were coming
right.
out. But there was some stuff in this documentary that even I didn't know, and I was following this story as it happened. Was there anything in here that surprised you, that caught you off guard, that you didn't know happened?
So my first thing was, along with just the beginning of his whole career and how he kind of got started with the dungeon. I knew about that stuff, but then just kind of seeing how he went through Stampede, went through all these other places, just seeing his overall growth arc before everything happened, that was cool. Because you see certain things, you might see a Benoit match with Malenko from ECW, or see something from WCW, but to see his whole entire kind of path and arc, and to hear, you know what, I love hearing Jericho's sides and hearing Jericho's take on Benoit, because they know each other so well, and hearing his candid
Yeah.
takes on so many
Hmm.
experiences that they had, just in general, it was cool. It was cool. And then
All the great
also, I
matches they
was,
had.
hmm?
All the great matches they had.
Yeah, man, it was cool to just hear certain people give him his flowers, but then at the same time hold him accountable. And then just the stuff that happened with his son too, how his son's trying to get into the industry and they kind of blackball him. That was kind of interesting to see and hear from him as well, and see how he's kind
Well,
of dealing with that. You know what I mean?
he's trying to get in too.
Yeah.
I don't know. He was trying to get
Yeah,
in. I didn't
I,
get that
I,
from the documentary. I missed
Yeah.
that. Oh shit! I didn't know. I thought he was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
It is David
yeah,
Benoit.
he's trying to get in, but he looks
Looks dead
just
on
like
him.
his dad,
Didn't one of you guys
and
joke about it?
that's kind of a
Yeah.
blessing
Didn't
and
one
a
of you guys
curse
joke
in a
about
way.
it that he should come out as a wrestling name, the Crippler?
I didn't.
No, it was the killer. It was the killer. I think I had
Jesus.
said he should come out and be like, "Look, it's David Benoit,
Oh
the
God.
killer.
He wouldn't be able to
The real
pronounce his
killer."
last name like that.
You
He'd have to
know,
come out like Benoit.
So,
You would not get away with that now.
No.
no. So like one thing I never knew was like some of the details about that whole last weekend,
Mm,
because I knew, okay, he killed his wife, he killed
right.
his son. I didn't know that like he didn't just kill Nancy. He like put his knee in her spine and
I
broke her
didn't know
back
that either.
before he killed her. And I didn't know
I
that
didn't
he
know
was
that either.
dead for 24 hours before he killed his
Yeah.
son. I didn't know that shit. He fucking in bed next to the body of his wife. Like that's I didn't know that shit. That hurt.
That's another
That
thing that he called. That's just
yeah,
disturbing. Like super.
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause he was still trying to make travel arrangements so he could make the pay-per-view with his dead wife right there next
Yeah.
to
That would
him.
have been worse, I think.
Because that thing is for 12 years or however long it's been since this went
Yeah.
down. It was kind of easy for me to be like, well, we don't really know what happened, so and still look at him as like the wrestler and try not to think about that last weekend. But knowing some of these details, I'm just like, I mean, yeah, CTE, but come on, man, that's pretty
Yeah, that's pretty
sadistic.
crazy.
I don't know.
That's what I think people like.
It makes
Hey,
it harder. harder to forget that last
Alzheimer's is a trip.
I think that's what people like the mythology of the conspiracy part of maybe he was taken out.
Yeah, they want to protect this memory they have. They want to protect this legacy, and they just want to remember his career, except for the last.
And it's crazy because how they tied it with Eddie Guerrero, dude.
Yeah, I hated that. I didn't really like that either.
Really, I liked it, kind of.
Well,
Honestly, I think that the friendship they shared and the story of that friendship and how that weighs on Chris Benoit after was very touching. Yeah, the fact that like
when you watch that Eddie Guerrero tribute, like Benoit was broken up the most out of everybody.
Yeah. I just hated seeing his breakdown. Like as soon as Eddie went, you could tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could just tell.
Because one thing the documentary is they tried to pinpoint it to, well, when Eddie Guerrero died, that was when this downward spiral started.
That was it, most definitely.
And it's especially when Eddie's own wife says, like, he seemed to be more beaten up about it than me. You know, like.
Yeah, when Benoit's like holding Eddie's clothes and crying on Eddie's bed, and even his wife is like,
"You beat me, guy! You beat me, guy!" Like, holy shit!
Like, damn, she's like,
I'm ready
damn.
to throw this shit out. You're over here hugging it, you know?
Yeah, like, damn, you got me beat.
I will say this. I had said this to you guys off air before, but I'll say it again. You know, it's said in the documentary, I didn't know this, but Eddie Guerrero introduced Chris Benoit to Christianity. And when you have a friend introduce you into a total new way of life, new way of thinking, I don't care what it is, if it changes your life for what you perceive to be the better, that furthers your connection to this friend, that deepens the connection. Because now y'all share something that's transformative. You know, it's more than just going and get a beer.
That's in
it's
your
like
brain
a lifestyle change,
from now on.
and you know what I mean. It deepens the connection. So I mean, that I totally bought that. You know what I mean. I totally bought that and understood that, and I was just like, that is, and combined with him having head trauma as well, probably exacerbating. You know what I mean, like the normal emotions of grief. Man, you know, it was beautiful to know that they had a great friendship like that, and they could, you know, really influence each other's lives to the good. And it was tragic to
you know what disgusted me though, man? Like when that kid said like the only WWE stars that ever like fuck with him afterwards was Chavo and Jericho. That says a lot about the business, dude. Like especially those, I don't know. For me, that's just fucked up. You know, like that's
no, I agree, because
literally he did everything
I always
did. You know, I mean, he was one of the best performers. He never called off. He was one of the hardest working. I mean, you know, the way he ended, it's fucked up. But you know, you can't really have sympathy for someone that does some shit like that. Obviously, I'm not defending that. But it's almost like.
Because like, hella hard not to defend it, not to try to defend it right now.
Well, I'm not defending. I'm not defending the act, but it's like when you completely turn on like their family just because you don't want to have your name tarnished. That's really fucked up. You know, because that's really what they're doing. They, you know, I don't want to be seen with this guy.
So like WWE is so mega PC though, like that it would never work over there. Like he would, like his son would literally have to like go either out of the country or
AEW maybe.
I don't know if they would even gamble, but maybe they will. But like I doubt it. He's gonna have to change his last name.
TNA's always
you
looking
better
for
put a
talent.
mask on or something and do something. I don't know.
What was his name? White Tiger? Oh no. What was his name before?
Pegasus Kid.
Pegasus Kid. Call himself Survive. No, Pegasus Kid. No,
Pegasus Kid.
Never mind.
I mean, but you know, that is really sad that like the shadow of what his father did will always overshadow his want to be a wrestler like
look
his
at all
dad.
these other guys that are like second
See, I
generation,
remember.
right? Like or people who are sons of everybody or anything like that. Like most of them are like pushed or not pushed like based on their like parents' legacies, right? So, for example, Charlotte Flair, all these other folks, right? You know, like The Rock and all these other folks who were, you know, sons. And so it like that family name has always been important in wrestling. So
Yeah.
that Benoit name is
I mean,
it is.
they could pull a Curtis Axel and just not use his name. They did that with Kurt Hennig's son,
Man, he
Joe
looked just
Hennig.
like
They called
Benoit,
him.
man.
Yeah.
I
Goldust,
know.
that'd be a good idea.
I
Like
know.
Goldust, you know?
Oh no, he look boy. You better do something to cover his face because he looked dead on his father.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. But like Goldust, they put
He
some.
really
Like I had no
does. He
idea.
looks like the ghost of Benoit
Something.
come back for revenge.
That'd be shady. Yeah.
Heard like an interview with David Benoit where he had talked about how like he wanted to get into wrestling and he wasn't ashamed of his dad and proud of his dad. He wanted to wrestle as Chris Benoit or Chris Benoit Jr. and he wanted to have tights just like his dad. And I'm here like, go, you may want to come up with a plan B,
Yeah.
dog. I'm just saying.
What?
Started. Yeah. You know, I actually watched.
I
Watch
mean,
this
but you know what? There's nothing wrong with a boy wanting to emulate
because he was good.
the
to
good
him,
things that he remembers about his father.
which that's.
Yeah,
I watched a
but
documentary on. It's called "Sins of My Father." You might want to check it out if you're interested. But it's about. No, it's actually
The Nazi one.
Pablo
Yeah.
Escobar's son. He he talked about.
Oh, okay.
Basically, the whole documentary is about immediately after his father died. He tried to get help from governments all over the world. To and everybody denied him help, including the Vatican. So he had to change his name, and like he went and did all these speeches, and he met up with the people, the sons of the people his father had murdered, and it was just weird. When your father does something like that, you're kind of fucked. But he did share some like beautiful stories about how his father was such a great dad, but over here to the rest of the world, he was a killer. And it's kind of for me watching that documentary. It was kind of weird hearing this kid talk about his dad doing what he did. Like if you were there, dog, you might have gotten it. That's the crazy thing about it. He could have probably been. He probably would have gotten that smoke too.
Yeah. It is what it is. It is what it is.
I like the end where it shows some healing and some reconnection of the family.
See, that's what I was gonna say is like you hear all these stories about just how fucking nice Jericho is, donating money to all these wrestlers who come into hardships or whatever. He fucking donated a bunch of money to Rico and when Rico was in trouble a while back, and he's fucking reconnecting people here. He fucking reconnected David Benoit with Nancy's sister. It's like holy shit, Jericho was a fucking saint.
Be doing everything, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, like we don't deserve.
I was gonna say, God bless Jericho.
He truly is the GOAT.
Yeah, I've heard amazing things. Like he gave somebody free tickets to come see the show because they bumped into each other or something. It was like I can't remember if it was a comedian or somebody. And Jericho was like, "Oh, you want tickets to see the show? Here you go." And he gave the guy like front row seats, and he was able to take his like nieces and nephews or something. It was like a one-off story I heard. He's a real stand-up.
In that industry,
Yeah.
like
a real stand-up.
How many? That's another thing. They really didn't have a whole lot of wrestlers comment. I mean, I'm sure anybody that's even affiliated with WWE would never fucking. I mean, what other than Jim Ross, was it Chavo and Jericho? There wasn't any other wrestlers talking about that, were they?
But I'd like to throw this out there. All the talent that they have had talking about the Chris Benoit situation, they're all former WWE guys. Like I think Dean Malenko is like the road manager or something for AEW now. Ross is also commentating for AEW, and then like I'm not sure where Chavo is, but the last time I saw Chavo, it was on that
Right.
the Lucha
But that's what I mean.
Underground
There's
wrestling
nobody
show.
from WWE commenting. The only thing
And
I've seen.
Yeah, I don't think anybody from WWE is going to.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
they're all former guys.
Nobody from that's active would ever comment on it anymore, right? Because the only time I've seen, I think some of the newer guys were doing a panel with Seth Rollins, where somebody, you guys saw that, where someone threw in like, is he going to be erased from history or something like that?
Yeah, I remember that. I think that was a few years after the Benoit thing happened.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's a weird thing to kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, for someone that could be in your Hall of Fame and you don't talk about them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. Thankfully, like the WWE haven't like censored him out of footage. Like you can still go on the network and watch Chris Benoit matches. No, so the matches are unedited. But like if you like, you know, they have like the chapter marker for each like pay-per-view or whatever. It'll say things like Chris Jericho challenges for the Intercontinental title instead of Jericho versus Benoit. So they won't put his name there, but you can still watch the shows and watch them in their entirety. They felt like they edited him out. So at least I appreciate that.
Yeah, I get it. I'm also, you know, if Nancy was my family, I probably would want that motherfucker not even talked about anymore. You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's the second episode of that? Was it the
New Jack?
New Jack, right?
So the next one is probably episode New Jack.
My favorite episode of the whole damn thing.
Dogs, I
mean, we're going to get to my favorite episode, but New Jack was my second.
I enjoy the shit out of New Jack.
Yeah, I think New Jack was my second favorite as well, is up there.
So check this out. I was listening to Talk is Jericho, and he had like the producers of Dark Side of the Ring on there, and they're talking about the season. I think it was like right after the Benoit came out. And they had said when they wanted to get New Jack, like they got his number, I think from like Tommy Dreamer or Sandman or somebody. I think it was Sandman. They got his number. And so they called him up and they were just like, is this New Jack? Yeah. This is so-and-so from Dark Side of the Ring. Do you know who we are? Yeah. We'd like to do an episode on you. Are you interested? Yeah. All right, cool. We'll come through then. All right, click. And that was it. It was like 3 years that they got him on the show. So when they showed up to the interview, all they had heard from him was 3 years when they showed up to do the interview.
Crazy. You know, I love him in another great documentary, Beyond the Mat, because everything you hear about him is like fucking nuts, and everything he does on the ring, he's fucking scary. And then you see him on that, and I picture like that's some guy I could go drinking with, like we fuck around and like, you know. It seems hella normal in that. He's not. I mean, he's still scary, but you know, it's yeah.
Dude, I mean, I love New Jack so much. I mean, he's one of the best promos in the business. He doesn't get enough credit for his promos. His stuff in Smoky Mountain, where he had fucking the entire South ready to link him to every show. Talking about shout out to O.J. Simpson. Keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work. Keep up the good work.
one less to deal with, or whatever he said. Yeah, New Jack is the most entertaining psychopath on the planet. I mean, he's one of the few wrestlers I know who's actually tried to kill their opponent in the ring. Everybody's sitting there thinking like, "Oh yeah, it's part of the show." New Jack's like, "No, I was kind of hoping that dude would die." Like,
I mean, so here's what when you hear these fucking stories about New Jack, like, you know, he had a match with a dude and he had like a Wolverine claw and one of the claws broke off, so he kept it in his pocket and the dude made him mad in the match, so he stabbed him 9 times. He's like, what the fuck? And he's like, they tried to say I stabbed him 16. I didn't. It was 9. I counted.
Hey, you know, to keep it real though, New Jack.
I just slashed him with a razor in the forehead. Come on.
So New Jack shared a story that actually happened to my grandfather, and I thought that was very interesting. Well, my grandfather today was telling me that, you know, he was back when he was looking for. He and my grandmother were searching for a house like back in the 60s. they had gone out to some little area out in the sticks in California, like going towards Sacramento before all the cities and towns were built up in between. There was a lot of like open fields and such back then.
Right.
And they were looking at some larger house, and some little boy that lived next door randomly walked over to my grandfather and then like touched his arm and then looked at his finger and then looked up at my grandfather, and he was like, "Why doesn't it come off?" And then my grandfather's response was, "It doesn't come off. It's not on top of the skin, it's under the skin." Because the little boy had never seen an African American before. And my grandpa tells that story. He actually told me the story today. And I was like, that's funny, because I'm reviewing this series that features this crazy wrestler named New Jack. And the same thing happened to New Jack, except New Jack called the little boy a little shit, told him to get off.
You know what? If someone would have came up to me and said something like that, even if he was a kid, not that I would be mad, but I would probably just kneel down and like baga baga, like some shit, just to scare the, like I'm your first brown person you've ever seen. I'm gonna scare the shit out of you.
So what got me like they covered all the major New Jack attempted murders. They covered the mass transit incident. They covered the Gypsy Joe fight. They covered the Vic Grimes fall. They covered him stabbing the dude. So they got all
Air
the
quotes
attempted
around
murders covered.
fall.
They covered all. I
That guy have his own movie, dude.
It's kind of hilarious. I couldn't believe when they were showing the footage of like New Jack stabbing that dude, like fucking Jim Cornette and D'Lo Brown. These people are just laughing. He's stabbing him. He must have pissed off Jack bad. Look at Jack just stabbed him.
And it's about saying so normal. Oh, look at Jack. That's just what Jack do.
That big goof.
I mean, Cornette's kind of crazy too, though. Like,
yeah.
It's not surprising to me at all that man would laugh at someone else getting stabbed in the ring.
That shit was crazy. No, New Jack, man, that man right there is a pure psychopath, but he's so entertaining. Like the whole episode, that's why I said from start to finish, that has to be my favorite one, because there wasn't a moment in that episode where I wasn't laughing or like tripping out or like shocked about something. But when you know no, for real, and the mark of a really good episode to me is when something actually makes me go back and watch the promos.
Yes.
I went back and went to.
I was looking at
I went straight to the Smoky Mountain promos, man. I was straight up there. I was like, oh, this dude was on fire. Like, if nobody has watched those promos, I highly recommend you go watch those New Jack Smoky.
They are something else.
That man is a genius on the microphone. Like I feel like if somebody were to do that today, it would either be really good or really bad, but it would be one or the other.
I was telling Joaquin when you were like cutting your Facebook promos, like I was telling Joaquin, like, if ever want to be a real heel, he's
thinking about doing it too.
Just be up in his promos like, ask Nipsey Hussle what happened when you crossed doing it too.
Once I seen his Smoky Mountain show, I was like, hey, you know what? Some of this could actually work on me.
Now, I think the two of the more crazy New Jack stories they didn't bring up in the documentary, and that's one in Smoky Mountain. In Smoky Mountain, he had a match with the Undertaker. They did a match. I don't remember if it was a tag match. I think it was a tag match. But it was like New Jack and the Gangsters versus the Undertaker, and maybe the Undertaker had a partner or not. The match was never broadcast. It was just for like a local event, and I think that's the condition that Cornette could use Undertaker, was that it's not aired on TV. But there's all these promos of like New Jack and D'Lo Brown and like cemeteries and graveyards calling out the Undertaker and shit.
All that shit.
So, like, if you can find those New Jack Undertaker things, those are gold. But the other thing is, I think it was in like 03, 04, he actually had a WWE tryout match.
Dang.
He told the story in a shoot interview. So what happened was, he got called in for, it was like a SmackDown or something. He got called in for like a tryout match, like a dark match. And backstage, I think it was, I forget who he said it was, if it was Tommy Dreamer or somebody was smarting him up, and somebody was just like, all right, look, when Vince walks by, if Vince walks by, don't look at him, keep your head on the ground, don't speak unless spoken to. And even then, it's yes, sir, no, sir. And then New Jack was saying, he was just like, what that? So he's in the back, he's doing his thing, and then Vince McMahon comes walking by, and New Jack says he stopped Vince McMahon and shook Vince's hand and said, sir, New Jack, pleasure to meet you. I want to thank you for this opportunity, and hope I give you what you like. Very cordial, very polite. But apparently, according to New Jack, Vince McMahon looked him up and down like, and then kept walking. And then New Jack says, a little while later, he was in the back, and somebody had, like, his name had gotten erased off of the match lineup, and they wrote somebody else's name in there. And then I think it was Johnny Ace or somebody like gave him his check, like, well, here's your pay for the night. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate it. You can stay and watch the show if you want. And Jack was like, what's this shit? So he just like left and went to a bar.
Wow.
That's
yeah.
And just because he stopped Vince McMahon?
Just because like he had the audacity to speak to Vince McMahon and introduce himself.
Of wrestling.
Yeah, Vince is a very interesting guy.
I saw him in person when I was working at Chase Center, and he looks like fucking Lurch from Addams Family. He's so fucking tall and awkward looking, and he's walked by himself and just looked at everyone like a fucking like a villain from a fucking movie, dude. Like just this tall, old as fuck man that's just like weird ass muscles. And he walked and he looked at everyone, but he had like no soul. He's like, he's just looking, and he's like, "Look, this is my investment." Like,
I mean, for all intents and purposes, Vince is a very real life supervillain. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Haven't you been paying attention?
Exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it's like you know what he looked like? For real. I imagine, this is what I imagine, a fucking a guy who owns a slaughterhouse walking around with all the cows like
Oh no, better yet. Vince has billions of Vince has billions of dollars. I'm sure a private helicopter and a bunch of muscle-bound henchmen. That dude's a Bond villain specifically.
Man.
Yeah.
So Evan, let me ask you this though. As from someone from your point of view, as a wrestler's point of view, what's your take on the Vic Grimes incident? The one in XPW where he threw him off the thing and tried to kill Vic
insane.
Hold on, real quick, just to add to Phil's question, would you agree to some shit like that? Sorry,
no.
I just wanted to...
First of all, no. Second of all, like, that shit is insane. You gotta be crazy as hell to even agree to do the shit in the first place. Right? But then, damn, he broke what? His damn back, his leg.
Well, actually, he just like broke an ankle.
Okay.
Like he got off lucky. But here's what I'm gonna say on this. I'm not going to justify what New Jack did, but I understand. Because when you go back to ECW, there's that whole spot where they're on the balcony, and New Jack's fucking dive with Vic Grimes through some tables, and Vic Grimes apparently got scared and was like, Jack, I'm scared. It's too far. I ain't doing it. Vic, we fine. We're going to Joe on 3. The cameras are rolling, okay? 1, 2. Jack, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. We going on 3, 2. Jack, I can't do it. I can't do it. You coming, big boy. 3. And then New Jack hits the ground first, and Vic Grimes lands on top of him. And Vic Grimes is a big fucking dude. Imagine 375, 400 pounds going full force, slapping you in the back of the head and slamming your head to the concrete and splitting your head open. You got brain fluid coming out your ears and your nose and shit. You're blind in one eye. And then the motherfucker don't apologize. He don't visit you in the hospital. Nothing. And then the promoter's like, would you like to have a scaffold match with him? I can see why Jack would try to throw that man past the ring.
I could throw his ass out there too, dog.
I cannot reconcile that the same dude that nearly beat Gypsy Joe half to death is also the same dude that had those brilliantly funny skits with Shark Boy and TNA.
Yeah, that's because he was in a comedy tag team in TNA with fucking Shark Boy. I think I shared one of those promos where Shark Boy is playing in like a kiddie pool, and New Jack's like, "I'm not gonna play with you. We got a match to win." The last time black people, he's like, "Black people don't like water." Last time we were on a boat, the trip wasn't no fun. He's like, last time we were on the water was on a boat, and the trip wasn't no fun.
That was
And
my
then he
favorite
ended up
episode.
getting lulled into hopping into the giant pool, and Shark Boy had that like that yellow rubber duck shaped inner tube around it. It was great.
So there was a New Jack documentary in like 03, 04 called like New Jack Hardcore. It was done by the same people who did 101 Reasons Not to Be a Pro Wrestler. And New Jack talked about the Vic Grimes thing in there. And he said when he was up on that scaffolding, like, he threw Vic Grimes or he shoved Vic Grimes. Vic Grimes is a big dude. I don't know how much throwing New Jack was doing, but he shoved him really, really hard. And he watched him clip the edge of the table and hit the rope and bounce back in the ring. And all he could think was, damn, you hit a table.
Sound like New Jack to me.
What in your opinion was the worst thing that New Jack had done in this episode of Dark Side of the Ring? Like, of all the stuff they talked about,
the Mass Transit one.
Yeah, I was gonna say the stabbing the dude in the ring.
That was crazy
but
too. Damn.
Yeah, the Gypsy Joe thing. He beat the fuck out of that poor man. But from what I hear, Gypsy Joe was an asshole, so he maybe had that coming.
Well, the problem was that no one told New Jack that Gypsy Joe's whole shtick gimmick was that he didn't feel any pain. So
I feel like even if somebody told that, New Jack would be like, "So let me get this straight. This Santa Claus looking motherfucker is no sell me. That'll work for me, player."
New Jack was still a professional, though, to a degree, and had like a booker told him that's how it went, New Jack could have always said, "Nah, I ain't doing the match." You know what I'm saying? Like,
he beat the fuck out of Joe. You can hear him. He swings the baseball bat. You can hear the bat clang on the dude's head.
Yeah, New Jack wasn't nobody to play with. He was no joke. No joke. And then I was Mustafa crazy ass when I see it was like this dude he snort pencil shavings. I was just about to say this crazy motherfucker. And then so they asked I remember the narrators asked the superstars, "Hey, is it true?" I think they asked the D-Lo, "Is it true he smoked pistol shavings?" He said no comment or some shit like that. But then you look at his face. They like did a cut to Mustafa's face when he was posing after. The boy looked like, yeah, he smoked that shit. He most definitely do. Crazy. That was to me. That was like the most wild episode of the season. It was really good. I really enjoyed the New Jack one.
I don't know how wild, because my favorite episode is pretty wild, but we're going to get to that. So the next episode was the Brawl for All, right? Which, I think it was like 4 years ago, when I got the WWE Network, I was doing my Attitude Era rewatch, where I started with the Raw after WrestleMania 14 and just saw how far I could get. And I remember watching all that Brawl for All shit and just going, this is trash. Oh, my God. And the whole thing is just because Vince Russo thought JBL was a bully and really wanted to see him get knocked out.
Yeah, this guy. Brawl for All, one of the most controversial, sometimes boring, sometimes entertaining concepts WWE done ever had. This, to me, this is the one episode that it kept my interest, but it's how much stuff didn't we already know about this? You know what I mean? Through little documentaries and stuff. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Jim Cornette and Vince Russo are like Captain America and the Red Skull. They are going to be at each other's throats
Sorry, I
forever.
cut out for a little.
Sorry, we're talking about the brawl for all with Russo and Cornette.
Connection. I just wanted to say something else. I figured you guys wouldn't hear me. Sorry to go back to New Jack, but I heard New Jack on a podcast. I think he was speaking to Honky Tonk Man. I don't know if you guys have heard that, where he gives his take on the whole Benoit thing, and he basically breaks it down where Nancy was his friend, and that he basically, there's no excuse for what a piece of shit he was. He had no sympathy for him at all, even though he was a great superstar. He said, like, obviously he killed his family. That's, unforgivable. And then on top of that, the way he committed suicide, to where he didn't have any pain, where he put it like a.
Yeah, well, I know that interview. I heard that one. What he had said is like the thing that made him lose respect for Chris Benoit was that Benoit hung himself with the weight machine. Mm-hmm. Like, he wrapped a towel around his neck, so that way if it didn't work, the cord wouldn't leave a scar. And that's what made New Jack lose all respect for him. Like, fuck this guy. If you're going to kill your family, at least be a man about it.
At least be a man about that shit.
I'm sorry. That guy would be a great, fucking gladiator back in the day.
No doubt.
Bring it back to...
You fucking sucks. So, so I don't really collect wrestling action figures. I got some, but not a lot. Just for the hell of it, I was on eBay trying to track down some old New Jack figures. They are hella expensive now, ever since his Dark Side of the Ring episode aired.
So that's a value increaser.
A New Jack talking about he had a phone call with his mom, and his mom's like, "You need to stop being so violent. You're gonna go to jail. You're a murderer." All this. And New Jack's like, "Shut the fuck up, mom. I got an action figure in Toys R Us. I don't need to hear from you."
I love how he calls his mother mom.
My call dropped for a bit. Wasn't he also didn't he murder somebody, like a justifiable murder?
Yeah.
He's
got a couple.
He's
got a couple.
Wow.
Yeah, he mentions that in the dog. It's a few people he killed, supposedly.
It's crazy. He's lived a hell of a life.
So sorry, and I know you guys were talking about the brawl for all.
So we're talking about the brawl for all. The end of Steve Williams' career. So long, Dr. Death.
Man,
it was
he
nice
was supposed to win that thing, man.
Yeah, and Bart Gunn got fucking pissed off that everybody was like, "Oh, Dr. Death is gonna win. Dr. Death is gonna win." They're putting Dr. Death in the ring with a blind guy, the guy with one leg, all this shit just stacking the tournament. And Bart Gunn's like, "I'm gonna knock this motherfucker out."
That guy never. That was like his only brush with fame, right?
Yeah.
He never had any other kind of success. Yeah.
Well, you talking about Dr. Death or Bart Gunn? So he was big in Japan. He had a big, I think, All Japan career.
Bart Gunn.
Oh, Bart Gunn. Yeah, I mean, Bart Gunn. I mean, he was Billy Gunn's partner when they were the Smoking Guns, and then he was Bob Holly's partner when they were the new Midnight Express.
Jeez.
And that dude is like Bombastic Bart and Bodacious Bob or some shit like that. And then Jim Cornette was their manager, and they were the NWA Tag Team Champions. And they tried to do like a mini NWA invasion of WWE. And Dan Severn was NWA champion. I remember all that shit. I remember I was there. And then they did the Brawl for All, and he won. And the office was mad that he won, so they didn't do anything with him. And he wasn't seen again until WrestleMania when he got knocked the fuck out by Butterbean. Which, I mean, people point to Zack Ryder as like, "Oh, WWE doesn't want you to get over. They'll punish you if you get yourself over." They've been doing that shit since 1999.
Got himself over. Yeah.
You can't have that.
Bring in Butterbean.
But I could watch Cornette and Russo battle till the end of time. Those
Yeah.
two hate each other with such a passion.
Yeah, that's the truth. And then when people, especially in this industry, when people have good creative minds, or in Russo's case, mind, um, like it's cool to see people's differing opinions and watch them go at it and kind of go at each other all these years later. It's kind of cool to see that.
Russo would have been good working like those magazines with all the scandals that you see at the grocery store,
like the National Enquirer or something like that.
Yeah, People magazine with all this bullshit, like just to stir up or TMZ type shit.
That's a Russo style. That's Russo
exactly. Style. Jim Cornette seems like a very passionate, like he could be a good comic book writer,
Yeah, he's hella old school.
Yes.
I mean, Cornette would be a good comic villain if you ask me. Offhand, it's just
really that guy just seems like.
But what's interesting with Russo. So here's what's interesting with Russo. He had like 2.5 really good, successful years in the late '90s, and that's it. That's the only success he's had because he went to WCW. And say what you will, but I think we can all agree his time there was not successful. And then he went to TNA, and say what you will, but there were times where the fans would chant things like "Fire Russo." So clearly it didn't work out there. And I think I remember the last thing he did in wrestling was he was linked up with some independent promotion. I don't remember which one it was. It was one I wasn't too familiar with. And he was like writing like their television show that they had just gotten signed. And apparently they taped their first episode and the network rejected it. And that was it for Russo with that company. So, and then I haven't heard him doing anything in the wrestling business since. I think he started his website and his podcast after that, where he'll watch Raw and tell them how they could make their product better.
Which is funny.
Hearing those two talk about their take in the whole, well, I don't know if you want to talk about it just yet, but the Montreal screw job. That was season 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind.
No, that was season 1. That was season 1. So we can talk about it. No, well, so see, the thing with Montreal is there's this phrase I just heard it recently, but it's basically success has many fathers, but failure is an orphan. Where when something doesn't work, nobody takes credit for it. It's nobody's fault. Nobody knows who's responsible for it when something's a disaster. But when something works, everybody wants to know, oh, that was my idea. I came up with that. I have heard so many people claim to come up with the Montreal screw job. Triple H says he came up with it. Cornette says he came up with it. Russo says he came up with it.
There's a rumor that Brett was in on it.
No. That can't be.
That.
I don't buy that.
The only reason
I feel like
many times is because of the documentary that happened.
I was about to say, I feel like Wrestling with Shadows kind of offsets that. Like, just when you see it, you kind of know that wasn't no fake shit going on. You know what I mean? Because Sean went out like a real life punk.
I mean, you can see Vince McMahon's black eye the next night. You can see Vince's black eye the next night on Raw.
Straight suckers. I swear it wasn't me. I didn't know anything about it.
There's always a payoff. I can see like if Triple H did do it, like his payoff is now in his position that he's at. Like he's got that evil villain in him,
You do this for me, I'll make you a made man.
Exactly. Like you do this for me, now you're one of the boys. Like you got the ring and the fucking Illuminati license plate, so you don't get arrested.
Stupid.
Okay. So after the Brawl for All, they talked about Jimmy Snuka.
It was interesting.
That guy was fucking scary, man.
Yes. Hey, Jimmy. I remember they was talking about how his wife's sister was trying to say, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?" It was all at the dinner table, and he just looked there. He's like, "I could just choke your ass right here, right now." I was like, "Damn, this thing was crazy." So you knew he was like on the edge. You know what I mean?
Do you think that like, because I know they talked
Yeah.
about drugs, right? Like I know. Do you think that could have also, like, some of these guys that had these crazy incidents before Benoit? Do you think
I
that
think
could
it's
have also?
possible.
Yeah.
I think it's possible, but they gotta most definitely be able to kind of check out people's brain patterns and their toxicologies and all that shit in them times, because I really wish we had that kind of technology back then to where we could answer hella questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think that with
Yeah.
wrestling the way it was and just the schedule and all that, it's definitely a possibility some of these guys had some brain damage.
So, do you
Yes.
It's like
think
a
he
weird
did it?
echo. Okay, it was just me. Okay,
Yeah, I
never
don't know
mind.
what's causing that, but I mean,
Yeah.
so the man's story changed a bunch of times.
No, he did that shit.
Make someone guilty.
I 100% believe that, and unlike the Chris Benoit issue, I have no sympathy for Jimmy Superfly Snuka at all, because he was clearly in his right state of mind when he did what he did. This is like, there's no excuse for his behavior at all.
Yeah, he
And
did
the
that.
only reason he got off for his crime was because he was suffering from dementia, at the time of the trial. And it's like, you can't punish someone who doesn't know what's going on anymore.
That's a really
Yeah.
good excuse, though.
One thing is, I feel
Dementia.
like the producer set up the Tonka Kid, because when they have his interview, they're talking about Jimmy Snuka and they're talking about the night that the murder or whatever happened, and they tricked Tonka Kid into admitting that he was in the car and disproving Snuka's story that he told the cops, where he said it was just him and his girlfriend. You can see when they tell Tonka Kid, like, well, that's not what Jimmy said. Jimmy said this. Like, his whole expression changes. He just looks frustrated. He's just like, no, Jimmy never told me that.
They set
And
him
you can
up.
just tell, like, oh, they set this man up. They set
You never
him
know.
up.
Didn't Vince McMahon, like, bail him out?
Yep.
I heard that in an interview with the New Jack, because he was talking about how evil Vince McMahon is. And
Yo,
then, like,
Vince, I didn't see it in the dark side of the ring. Vince has done some shady ass shit. Like,
He just shows up with that briefcase,
dude,
and
imagine if that
magically
guy was
everything
in
goes away.
politics. Like,
man, Vince was like Thanos back in the day. He just connected to all the bad shit, everything. He was like the final villain.
yeah, the final
Manipulated everything
boss.
from the shadows.
I got a question for you guys as wrestling experts, which, for me, you're the wrestling experts out. Who was like the boss in the storyline first? Was it him or Bischoff?
Bischoff.
Really?
It was actually Bischoff. Bischoff
that was
became
like-
an on-screen
that was
character before Vince was.
I don't know. Like, was that him biting? Was it?
I mean, Bischoff wasn't the first, though. There's one person who was an on-screen. There's one owner who was an on-screen character, but we're gonna get to him later. Because after Snuka, what was after
Bravo,
Snuka?
yes.
Was it Dino Bravo?
Dino Bravo. That was a good one.
That's the guy that was killed by the cartels, right?
The Mafia.
Yeah. Yeah, he was selling illegal cigarettes and had his cigarette selling cartel
Cigarette selling cartel.
backfired on him.
That's I had never heard of that guy at all, but it was good to see.
See, I just knew him from his WWE run, so I wasn't really familiar with him as like this big star running his own territory. I just knew him as like, another mid-carder on the roster.
I didn't know about him until I watched, because I wanted to watch all
But
of
I
them.
feel like
this. But when I saw that one of his buddies was Jake the Snake,
Yeah.
I instantly knew this guy partied hard.
See, for me, I think the Dino Bravo episode might have been the worst, the weakest episode of the season.
Even though they had closure from that like secret fucking
but
murderer guy.
Nah, I feel like it didn't.
Interesting.
I feel like it didn't really stick all the way. It didn't stick the ending all the way. Like, you know, how, like most of the shows, most of the episodes, they kind of flowed. Everything they kept trickling good information in there. I feel like this one kind of drug a little bit.
Yeah, and it ends kind of like that movie Hollywoodland, where it's like, we
like
still don't know who
Bigfoot
actually did it. Oh well.
Yeah.
Where they go looking for Bigfoot. This time we're gonna get him.
Yeah.
And, you know, they just go to the forest. They just go camping.
But yeah, so after was it?
Okay.
I want to talk about David Schultz because that whole clip of him slapping the reporter has been like internet famous since before YouTube was even a thing. I remember seeing that shit on like Newgrounds in like 2001.
Dr. D. That was a good ass episode too.
Yeah, like he is a great promo. Like he did this promo with Mean Gene, and I think the AWA that I need to send you guys if you haven't seen it because it's awesome. Like he's talking about, you know, he's talking about Hulk Hogan and whatnot. He's challenging Hulk Hogan, and he's talking about how, you know, he went to San Francisco and he was looking for a woman and he couldn't find no woman. He found a lot of men that looked like women, and he was saying that's where you belong, Hulk Hogan. You belong in San Francisco. And Mean Gene just cracks. Like he has to like turn away from the camera because he cannot stop from corksing. And it's brilliant the way he does it.
It was a fantastic promo. This is a good episode. I liked his story more so than anything, and I liked watching his character and seeing. I didn't even realize that he spent some real good time over there at in WWE like that. You know what I mean? To where him and Vince had some history.
Yeah. So there's a rumor that he was originally supposed to be in that WrestleMania 1 main event, even with Roddy Piper, and that this whole reporter incident happened, and they ended up replacing him with Paul Orndorff. But because the thing is, he took it so seriously, and he was so good at just being that old school badass heel. You know what I mean? Like that whole segment where he's got like the wife and the kids.
I was cracking up that whole
and he's
time.
just
I know
being
it
a
sounds
dick
terrible,
to his
but I
family.
was just like, man, this is great heel shit.
Yeah. And I feel he gets a bad rap because like Vince McMahon, I mean, Vince didn't tell him slap the shit out of that reporter, but Vince told him, you know, rough up that reporter a little.
Verbal.
Evidently, Vince meant verbally.
Yeah,
you should probably specify that shit.
Crap
next
out
time.
of that guy. That was crazy. And then it was funny because then afterwards they showed the one where Hogan slipped the sleeper on the other guy. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Fucking people up. Fucking people up over kayfabe, man.
He hit
Facts.
It was a big deal back in the day. You know, that's how you made your money.
Man.
You know, if people didn't think it was real, you weren't selling tickets.
I'm telling you, bro. That's why I say I like watching some of the older heels do what they do, because it was back in the day where you had to have people really hate your ass. You know what I mean? And so they just be saying wherever. That's why I really like some of these guys. Is just that aspect of Dark Side of the Ring I like watching. You know what I mean?
And it's not biased. You know, that's what I like about it.
Like watching
something like this. I can't imagine some of this stuff on there if WWE, even if they did stuff not about Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
Nah, they wouldn't be able to share some of these, you know.
Yeah, WWE is very, very biased and one-sided with their stuff because they have a corporate image to uphold.
I get it.
They have shareholders, so I get it. I'm not gonna lie. watching these episodes, like sometimes I'll just be in my car, like cutting promos to fucking nobody.
Yeah.
I'll be in here just like, you know what the difference is between you and me? When I was a kid, my daddy wanted to be David Schultz, and your daddy wanted to be Eddie
That's what I'm
Mansfield.
saying. It's just like that. It was just a different level of creativity back then. I feel like, and if you're a wrestler, especially anybody trying to be a heel, you got to go. I feel like honestly, you got to go back. You got to kind of study what came before, especially now because it's so cookie cutter. You know, it's so easy to just throw on some tights and be a wrestler.
Yeah.
Not you don't necessarily have to have personality. But
And you
man,
could
some
take
of
the
these guys,
personality anywhere back then. Like now, it's like hella fucking, like you said, hella corporate. You know,
yeah,
like you could literally be Macho Man in like 3 different promotions in 1 week.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like guys like David Schultz, they just had natural heat to where people hated that. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't take much for him to do it. That's why I like those type of guys.
Bruiser Brody.
And the thing with Schultz,
Yeah.
the thing with Schultz is he was a legitimate badass. I mean, he became a legit bounty hunter after his wrestling career was over.
Crazy shit. Crazy shit.
Yeah, he's a bounty. Yeah, and I know nobody's going to be surprised to hear Jim Cornette hate somebody, but hearing Jim Cornette go off on Eddie Mansfield, oh my God!
Man.
What? Fill me in on that one because I'm not.
Well, Eddie Mansfield is that wrestler that like revealed the business and did that like Dateline report where he showed like here's how you do this, here's how you do that.
Can I say something on that?
Is done.
Can I say something on that?
They did like
I can't stand that shit. Yeah. I hate when people do stuff like that. I feel like certain things is pretty like, okay, whatever, show them standard little shit, maybe take a bump. Like how we did at Revolution, right? Stuff like that when we were recording. But when you start to really show people the intricacies of what the fuck it is that you're doing after all the time that you've probably trained to get it right, after your classmates and everybody else who is in the locker room, they've all trained hard to perfect this and protect the art, and you just go out there and just expose it. I hate that. I think that's one of those things. I hate that. And then the thing is, they give people a negative false connotation that basically if you go wrestle, it's either really real or it's really fake. And it's kind of in the middle. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, because when you do like those exposés where you're like, oh, look, it's no big deal. They're not really getting hurt. Look, they're not really punching each other. Oh, the corner's padded. It's so easy. Like you're kind of you're devaluing what's going on in there, and you're making it seem like it's so easy. Exactly. But then you have guys like Draws who are paralyzed from the neck down because of just a simple spot gone wrong. Yeah. Buff Bagwell broke his neck on a bulldog once. Maven snapped his leg in half doing a baseball slide. Triple H tore his quad off the bone, just planting Jericho from behind when he had somebody in Walt Jericho. Like, by making it seem like, look how easy it is. Like you're delegitimizing like the risk that's involved.
That's why
you're kind of devaluing the risk that's involved.
I feel like are what's wrong with the business. You feel what I'm saying? Most definitely.
Yeah. Trying to get where Eddie Mansfield was coming from, where he was just like, I wasn't getting booked. People stopped booking me. Promoters started jipping me on my pay. Wrestlers, he had that line where he was like, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. Man, got to free the wrestler.
Guys like that, looking like
the Tekashi 6ix9ine of wrestling.
Yeah. Fucking guys like that, it's like, I'm not as successful as The Rock, so you know what? Fuck it. Like, go get better. I'm
the business. Because his whole justification, he said, "Oh, I did it for the boys."
There's no fucking.
Like, you fucking.
There's no. There's no fucking oh yeah, I'm on a fucking Lone Ranger mission. Bullshit. There's no such thing.
Yeah. But so I got to talk about it because this is my favorite episode Herb Abrams and the UWF. Oh my God. My favorite episode of the season.
Herb Abrams?
No, y'all don't agree? Herb Abrams and the UWF. This man lived a dream. Like that whole joke of
shit,
cocaine
okay,
and hookers was
yeah,
his
no,
real
no.
life.
Sorry, I think
Yeah,
I
you
think
still
we
there?
lost Evan. I thought I lost you because I didn't hear anything.
Did we lose Evan?
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Oh, we just lost Evan. Gonna wait for him to jump back in. But Herb Abrams and the UWF, my favorite episode of the season because this man is
what
a
is
lunatic.
it? This is the one I didn't watch. What was this in the 70s?
A legitimate
80s?
This was early 90s. You back, Joaquin? So we're talking about my favorite episode of the season, Herb Abrams and the UWF.
Ah, yeah, that was a great episode.
Cocaine and hookers. This man had all this money. Nobody knows where it came from. He decided to start a wrestling federation, and his whole life was just surrounded by cocaine and hookers. And he would book like the MGM Grand and draw 30 people, have fucking 15,000 empty seats in this arena.
And this is like a small time company, so it's really hard to it was really hard to like figure out where the money came from.
You back in? So Evan, we are talking about my favorite episode of the season.
That was
Herb Abrams and the UWF.
Cocaine and hookers, bro.
Cocaine and hookers.
Hey, Herb was a freaking beast, bro. I know he was one of he was one of those mover and shaker guys that kind of felt like and it just caught up to him, man. It just all caught up to him.
Yeah. Well, see, like Herb Abrams was like the Tony Khan of his day. If Tony Khan, instead of being a really smart businessman, had a drug.
Oh my God, that's so funny. But for me, like, man, and thinking about it back in the day, right, when the UWF was a thing and he had just really got started and they were starting to bring all those big names in, this dude brought in Andre the freaking Giant and got him snatched like the same
Giant.
It was crazy.
I mean, for one show, and then Vince wrote Andre.
That's what I'm saying,
check.
though. It's wild. It's wild shit.
Yeah. It is. And like they're doing that press conference where he's announcing the UWF and he's saying that Bruiser Brody's going to be one of his top stars, even though Bruiser Brody died 2 years before that.
Hello? You guys
Man, Herb Abrams. Herb just felt like this guy with a giant dream, and anything that he could do, even if it would be considered financially a failure for him, it was a success, right? Like, it's like, yeah, we didn't make any money, but we got the garden.
That's the cocaine talking.
But that's the thing, is like before Eric Bischoff, Herb Abrams was an on-air authority figure. I don't know if he was the first. Yeah, I don't know if he was the first, but he predates Bischoff. He was on there before Bischoff. I think it was like 92, 93 that the UWF was running. And this man, he was always on cocaine. He always had hookers around. He was living somebody's dream. It's the dream a wrestling promoter should have. He was living somebody's dream.
He also wrestled. Like, he was a wrestler and promoter. Like, he was the first.
No, he wasn't a wrestler. He was the owner and the on-screen authority figure.
So he lived a rock star life, basically, is what you're saying.
He did, and he drove this promotion into the ground. Like, holy
I never
crap.
heard of UWF. Now that I'm looking at.
It was only around for a couple of years,
Oh, he died already. Oh shit.
and
Okay.
it was not very successful. Yeah, no, there's conflicting stories to how he died. We know it involves
Wow.
him being covered in Vaseline and high on cocaine, and we know it involves a bunch of strippers, and we know it involves him destroying furniture with a baseball bat, looking for secret recording devices. But we don't know if he died of a heart attack before the police got there, after the police arrested him, while he was in
So his
jail.
last
Different
years
people have
sound
different
crazy.
stories of when he
Okay, I'm
died.
googling him
But
right
they
now, just because, like I said, I didn't watch all of them, but and this was part of the mystery that I like. I'm googling him, and I see. Okay, this is how you know his last couple of years must have been crazy because he founded UWF in 1990 and he died in 96. So those last 6 years were batshit crazy. I'm assuming.
Yep. And when he died, he was completely naked. He was covered from head to toe in Vaseline. He was high on cocaine. They found a bunch of cocaine and other drugs in his office. He had multiple hookers with
that
him.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this, yeah, I mean, you hear all these
Mr.
stories about like
Electricity.
Vince McMahon being crazy, but I
Gentlemen,
don't think
sorry about
anybody
my
can
phone,
top
man.
Herb
This shit was
Abrams.
crazy, the connection.
Mr. Electricity, huh?
It's all good, but Evan, you got to tell us your thoughts on Herb Abrams because he lived the dream. He lived somebody's dream.
Coke-infused dreams, what he did.
Oh my God. Herb Abrams, bro. So if I were to make a comparison to Herb and somebody that like we know, like, or that we're familiar with, it would be like that, bro. I'm telling you, it would be like that sleazy hustler guy that, you know what I'm saying, that just goes out and does whatever. He hustles, but then
Selling snake oil.
yeah, and but it catches up to him. You know what I'm saying? And just like the what was that?
The
Black,
jig is up.
yeah, just the blackjack brawl, whatever the hell that shit was. That was
Yeah.
one of his jig is up moments. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, he ran the MGM Grand and drew like 50
Bruh.
people. Had 15,000
Bruh.
empty seats at the
You can't fail no harder than that, man. You can't fail no harder than that.
See those, like, there's leeches that see guys like that and they leech on them because, like, all right, he's pretty stupid with his money. I'm gonna hang out with this guy because he's gonna do some ridiculous shit,
Right.
and then I'll benefit from hanging around with this idiot.
Yeah.
He drew the MGM Grand and only drew like 50 people. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, he had brought in big names and all that shit. It did not matter. Yep, Foley used to wrestle for him. Hella people.
You know,
Foley used to wrestle for him.
As a comedy show promoter. I mean, you know, I've had nights where we're doing really, really not as much people, but you know, at the end of the day, we're just telling jokes. Not to discredit.
Yeah,
it,
man,
you
but
know?
that shit ain't the MGM Grand. That's crazy.
Exactly. And then that's like, was there no fucking no promotion at all? Like, I don't see how they couldn't sell that out. You know? Oh shit, we forgot to put up these flyers.
No, I was about to say, I feel like he had to spend more on the actual wrestlers and shit than he had to spend on promotion. It had to be nobody knowing this shit was going on, or I don't know why I'm trying to give him an excuse, but it had to be something, bro.
I think the line of the episode, I forget who it was, but one of the people they interviewed, you know, they said,
oh my God,
you know, at least Herb died doing what he loved. Cocaine and hookers.
Let's be honest, who doesn't love that? I mean, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a universal thing. It's pretty universal.
it's a universal thing. Yes, it's any married man's dream of dying that way. You know, which I see he's married too.
But Herb Abrams was my favorite episode with New Jack as a close second. Because Herb Abrams He was such a lunatic. It's basically, imagine if somebody gave Gary Busey money for some
I got a
reason
better one.
and told
This
him to go
fellow made
start a
Donald
business.
Trump president. I'm just kidding.
Man, that was fun. Okay.
So after Herb Abrams, they covered the Road Warriors, and I feel bad for
Man,
Animal because fucking Hawk just fucking his career up left and right. God, like Animal has so much talent, and as a team they were great, but Hawk just could not get his demons in check. And when you a tag team, you live and die by your partner.
So the Road Warriors are those guys still alive? Animal is.
Animal is.
You know, those
Hawk
are
is.
like.
But they were the ones with the face paint and the shoulder.
You think of the most easier ones, like Hulk Hogan, obviously, but those are those guys that you like. Oh yeah, you know, like those are very like almost anybody when they see them, they know those guys, like Vader. You know, I didn't know much about the Road Warriors.
Yeah. They were really big in like the NWA and WCW. They didn't come to WWF until real late in their career.
Recently,
WWF actually created their own version of the Road Warriors called Demolition.
Oh, sure.
That was like, no, that was back in the 80s.
Okay.
WWE had their own version of the Road Warriors called Demolition. And then because the Road Warriors were in NWA, they were in WCW, they were in Japan. You know, they were this big dominant tag team. And then when they came to WWF, you know, Vince is like, well, we got the Ultimate Warrior. You know, we got a lot of wrestlers with Warrior in the name. Come up with something other than the Warriors, and so they dubbed them the Legion of Doom. So in WWF, they were known as the Legion of Doom.
Which name do you guys prefer, Legion of Doom or?
What are your thoughts on the Legion of Doom,
Joaquin?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I thought maybe I was just saying, like, what do you prefer, Legion of Doom or their other moniker?
Road Warriors.
Yeah,
I prefer Road Warriors.
That sounds like what they are.
Because that's what they were for the majority of their
like villains in Mad Max. You know, Road Warriors just kind of sounds what they look like. You know, you see a lot of those guys at Raider games.
Yeah.
Basically, post-apocalyptic football players.
But Hawk had his demons and yeah. But that's the thing. Hawk had his demons and he couldn't keep them in check, and there's alcohol and drugs.
Wrestlers not
getting
it, like, you know, they're just getting addicted to fucking drugs, man. Because it's like, you know, you're constantly fucking hurting your body, and you're doing it to get fucking, you know, for pain killing. It's just like what you know, like I mean, maybe these guys now don't talk about it as much, or I don't know, but like I just can't see those guys not getting addicted to anything.
I mean, CM Punk is a righteous example of a man who won't even take prescribed medication for his pain. So there's exceptions. Really? You know, not every wrestler is gonna fall victim to the addiction, but
I mean,
you know, it just really depends. And I think if it's almost as though if you're not doing pain pills, you're doing steroids. You know, and if you're not doing steroids, you're starting off with pain pills, or you're drinking, or you're doing something to, you know. I feel what you're saying, JD, 100%.
Oh yeah, just because, I mean, you know, you can only be so mentally tough, you know, taking all pain.
And you're wrestling like almost like what every night for some people. You know, they're having a match. Not much time for rest or recuperation. I mean, especially if you're on indies and that's how you're making all your money. And you know, it's not like, you know, I mean, you know, it's not like acting or doing simply acting or doing a stand-up routine. You're punishing yourself on a regular basis.
Big time. And that's why I heard an interview with another group of painted guys in Insane Clown Posse, where they talked about hanging out with like the rock bands and rappers, and then partying with wrestlers. So the wrestlers like much as any other crazy performers, rock stars, and they party way harder. Like they're just crazier people. It's a different kind of human, to do that to your body every day.
Yeah.
Well, shoot,
Yeah.
man.
So
Hawk,
what are your
Hawk,
thoughts on
I'm
the
here.
Road Warriors,
Hawk,
Evan?
I think we just lost him.
no, I'm good.
No, he's here.
Can you hear me?
Really?
Okay, so
No. Oh, I
what?
guess he just
Yeah, I
back
can hear
on.
you.
I couldn't hear him.
Okay, so what I think of
Still
the
can't hear him.
episode, is that it was good, but to me,
So what are your thoughts on that one, Phil? Oh, my bad. I can't hear Evan.
Well,
That's
I was
why.
listening to what
My
Evan's
bad.
thoughts were before you chimed in.
Sorry, I can't hear Evan. My bad.
Okay. I can hear Evan just fine. So you were saying, Evan?
Now I can't hear Evan.
Evan? Oh,
The big
For what it's
conspiracy.
worth,
here we
I
go.
thought the Road Warriors were amazing. I mean, they're one of the greatest tag teams to ever exist. I mean, they're the only. They didn't hold ECW tag titles, right? Yeah, they never. That's why I said they didn't hold
I don't think
ECW
they were
tag
in
titles. So
ECW.
they were the first to hold 3 major tag belts before their retirement. WWE, NWA, and WCW. It's incredible. Incredible legacy they got going for them. Sounds like
Yeah.
Evan came back in.
He just
He
dropped
has the
out. He
problem
might be
I
coming
have,
back in. He's having
Evan,
connection
which is
issues.
crazy because the week before that it was Joaquin, and it's like it. I know, man. Me too. That's
I
for
missed
all
the
our listeners.
studio.
I know. I've had
Oh,
some feedback on the. They enjoy it, but it's like sometimes it's. I know they've mentioned it sounds weird. We will be back in the studio when it's safe to do so. We talked about it. We talked about I know because you got a situation going,
yeah.
Joaquin. Maybe like we could get at least a few of us in here, and we could still do this virtually, right?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely we can.
Yeah.
I miss it
Because,
also.
man, do I miss the studio.
It's been kind of weird. I come and I sit on the couch just to get used to because I'm I don't want to lose the whole feel of it because you know what it is, man. Like I did that Zoom comedy show with Evan a couple of weeks ago or a month ago. There's something about live energy, like live. And that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love doing the phone calls because I check in with you guys and we I have a good time. But there's something about the live magic, even in the podcast, not just with stand up.
You know what? I mean, that's what I told the next guest that I invited for next week. I said, I had always envisioned you coming through and chilling out on the comfy chairs and stuff and kicking it like our other guests because he's a real cool guy and I feel like we build an amazing atmosphere that way. I mean, I'm not saying that the interviews we've done so far have been bad, but there's definitely some sort of magic to sitting down and being in the studio.
Yeah. That's why I'm trying to make the most of it. Like I've been trying to book guests
Right.
that
Yeah.
we
Like
normally couldn't get into
me
the
too.
studio
Like this
for
guest I got coming up
scheduling reasons.
he does so
Oh,
much,
so
you know what I mean? He's always running around doing something. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a perfect time. You know what I mean? They reach out. But no, back to the subject of we don't want to stray too far from the wrestling doc. Man, how heartbreaking is it it feels like, they were born to do this thing. These guys are so tough and you get a reputation for just fighting people because you enjoy fighting and being rough and taking hits. It just feels like some people are just made to be professional wrestlers,
Yeah, yeah, like New Jack's a perfect example of that. But yes, those guys.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, New Jack's the type of
can you
person who
imagine?
cannot
Can you
hold a
imagine
9 to
every
5 job.
customer fucking unloading their fucking anger on a guy like New Jack in a grocery store? You know.
You just fucking imagine New Jack in like a red polo at
Exactly.
Target,
Like can you
fucking
imagine
selling
someone? I need
groceries
to
and
talk to
shit.
your fucking manager. You know, and that's the guy you take out your frustration, not knowing what the hell he's gonna do to you. Jesus Christ, that's yeah.
Be like, Jack, did you stab a
That's
customer
that's what
today? Man, that little bitch was talking
there's
shit.
wrestlers that seem like that are obviously like there's like there's dogs and wolves, like there's guys that are scary, and then there's guys that are really good athletes. Like The Rock's a perfect example of like he's a good athlete. I mean, yeah, he's big, but he seems like a nice guy. You know what I'm saying? And then there's guys like fucking New Jack that are the Road Warriors that are fucking scary. Like like after the show is over, like who's still scary in the locker room, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what that. You go ahead.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. What was it that stood out to you about the Road Warrior documentary, Phil and Joaquin?
A lot of it just goes to, when you're a tag team like that, where you both have like matching gimmicks, as opposed to just two single guys who are thrown together.
Right.
You kind of live and die by one another. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Bubba Ray has had a pretty okay singles career as Bully Ray recently, but Devon ain't going nowhere. Shawn Michaels broke out from the rocker and became Shawn Michaels. Marty Jannetty ain't going nowhere. But then you also, same, and like the Hardy Boys have found individual success. Edge and Christian found individual success. But a lot of those tag teams, especially in the 80s, where you had,
The Heart
like the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express, and you had the Killer Bees, you had all these tag teams where, you kind of need each other. Like, Ricky Morton ain't doing a lot of single stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's Rock and Roll Express or nothing. And so with the Legion of Doom, Animal by himself isn't really much of a solo act. He needs Hawk there so they can be the Road Warriors. And with Hawk having his drinking problems and his demons, that messes it up for Animal. Because what's Animal gonna do? He's not getting booked. He's not getting work. He's struggling to get by himself. And then
is he
so I get
still
it.
active right now?
I feel bad for him, especially because
in but he's
Animal
in
is. They tried
small
to
time
form
shit
a
though, right?
Legion of Doom in the
that
early. Yeah, he does like independent stuff. They tried to reform the Legion of Doom in the early 2000s with Heidenreich,
that's the thing
and
about
it
like those
didn't
classic, like you said,
really
those
work
classic
out. And
wrestling tag teams. Like you couldn't replace Hawk. Like it's not like Kiss, the band Kiss, where you could just throw another guy in there with paint on. Yeah, we're bringing in some other guy.
Like, oh,
Whatever.
we don't
Fuck
need
it.
Paul Simon.
You
We'll get
can't
somebody
really.
else.
I mean, they obviously Kiss did it. They replaced the other people, but yeah, yeah.
I'm so tired. I'm getting names all confused.
So like, I didn't know he was still active. He's not active on like, big names, is he? Like he's not in AEW or WWE, is he? Okay.
He unfortunately, like
Nothing
most
like that.
wrestlers of the
Nothing like
80s, he's just going to the indie circuit and signing autographs and making appearances and I
like
mean,
cons.
no, at wrestling shows.
Oh, wrestling shows.
You go to almost any wrestling show in the country and you'll find some old school guy, from decades past signing autographs, or maybe if you're lucky, they'll like Sandman for a long time. I don't know if he's still doing this, but he was paid to show up, run in the ring, and hit someone with his Singapore cane. Interfere for like the face or something, or for the heel. As like a fixer.
Hmm.
Or maybe they'll have like a one-off match or something, or someone will want to tag with Animal, or you know something like that. Like I want to be a new Road Warrior or whatever. But for the most part, like that's someone asked me, what's the estate like for these professional wrestlers? Like, how much money are they left with? And I said it really depends. Because they're making money based on like how famous they were. Like, were they on TV? Were they not on TV? Like, you could be, if you're the top guy in WWE, you could be making millions, and if you save your money correctly, then you'll be okay. You know what I mean? Or if you parlay yourself in other ventures, like you're doing commercials for Slim Jim or something. You know what I mean? Like step into a Slim Jim, oh yeah, stuff like that. Then you're doing fine. Or if you're building a business using your wrestling fame to build a business outside of the business, then that's fine as well, or starting your own school. But then there's this whole other tier of guys who, don't do all that, but they'll, just because they were on TV for a couple of years, they're able to make $2,000 a night, just to, swing a chair, badly.
Mm-hmm.
Here's looking at you, Laparca. Um, Um, but then you got guys who've been on the indie scene their entire lives, and they're making like, you know, $50 a night, $60, $70 a night, you know.
Like Jake the Snake
And
and
some of
Beyond
them
the
build
Mat.
up their name. Yeah. I mean, some of them are making like, maybe if they're doing enough indies and they build a brand for themselves, they're making over 60, 70, maybe they're making like 500 a night or something like that. You know what I mean? But for the most part, there's not a whole lot to be made. So somebody like, one half of the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors, is probably going to get a decent pay cut for going into a local indie fed that's trying to put butts in seats. So, there's just this celebrity dude who's big.
What do you think that number is?
What? How much money?
Yeah, like what's your estimate? Like, what do you estimate?
Well, I mean, Parker. Well, there is a former like big time wrestler who got paid $2,000 because he was on TV in the '90s. So I would suspect that the same would. I mean, for someone who's as decorated and as well traveled as one half of the Road Warriors, they're probably pulling a little bit more than that, to be honest with you. And then if they're charging per autograph, they're raking in like potentially another grand easy.
Wow. What's crazy about that?
Like 10,000.
Okay. Like 10,000. What's crazy about that is there's this comic I know personally, I worked with in the past. He's getting bigger because of his YouTube stuff. I don't want to say his name, obviously, but he told me like for some private gig he got hired for, it was an easy $10,000, and that's just comedy, and you're telling me about some of these guys making like 2 G's, like, whew, man, that's crazy.
Still not bad money though.
No, it's not. It's not.
Night,
but you get what I'm saying. Like your whole. That's what I said.
Totally.
I'm not saying like comedy doesn't deserve it, obviously, but like just how crazy it is. Like if you're thinking about getting into this shit, and you're expecting to make money from like maybe.
Especially because how many times a week are you wrestling? If you're wrestling once a week, that 2 G's is your only payday. You're paying for, food and hotel. Yeah. Sometimes the promoter will pay for your travel.
What territory you work in, like as far as
that makes sense. But it's just that's crazy, because what if something really bad happens, and all you got is a couple. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking about it as far as like the damage to your body.
Well, that's why wrestlers need to unionize anyway. This has been something that they've been talking about for a minute. but it's just never
The
came
road.
to
So,
fruition.
I don't know much about Hawk's death. Did he? How was he? Did their reign end before he died, or did he die when they were? Because they
What happened with Hawk was he had got, it was similar to Eddie Guerrero, really, where he had gotten himself clean and he was clean for a couple years, and he was just like moving furniture, like him and his girlfriend or him and his wife or whatever. He was moving furniture and
That's the
went to
scary
lay
way to
down,
go.
and his heart just gave out.
I heard this. I don't know if you're familiar with this comedian Joey Diaz.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Because you don't see
Joey
it coming.
Diaz. He has a very famous podcast, The Church of What's Happening. He talks about, because he did cocaine for years, since he was a teen, and he just got sober 10 years ago, not that long ago. But according to him, because he did everything, but cocaine was his main thing. But according to him, the certain drugs like cocaine and I forgot what other drug he mentioned, they stick to your fat. So he says every once in a while, now that he's losing weight, he'll be working or doing something, and all of a sudden he'll get these horrible drug anxieties, which it's kind of like an after effect from doing so much blow. And I'm wondering if that's something like that was what happened to Eddie Guerrero, or like you said, to Hawk.
No, definitely. I definitely think that's what happened. Is you punish your body like that with a chemical substance
that can have an effect later on.
I mean, that stuff elevates your heart rate.
Yeah.
Artificially. So naturally, your heart can only take so much of that, and even if you quit using it, it's still in a weakened state after you've done pounding it half to death. So you're taking years off your life whenever you use coke or crack or heroin or any of the heavier stuff.
I'm here.
So,
he missed out on the road
so Evan, you're still there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to, he missed most of it, but he's here for this part. But Evan, they chose to end the season with the Owen Hart fall, which
that's a tough double
you start
whammy.
with Chris Benoit, ended with Owen Hart. I mean, that makes sense. And it was a tough double whammy. But you being as big a Bret Hart fan as you are, like, I would love to hear your thoughts on the Owen Hart
episode for me on the personal basis, just because I remember the day that he had passed away. So it was really crazy and surreal to actually hear Martha's accounts of everything. Because, you've only heard so much about her as far as articles or anything like that covering this.
because her thing is she doesn't do a lot of interviews or anything because she's very bitter towards Vince McMahon.
When you listen to a story, when you listen to what she's saying, you can totally understand where she's coming from. Whereas beforehand, had you not, you've been like, oh, I want Owen in there. I want Owen in the Hall of Fame.
It's like, was it last year at the Hall of Fame when Mark Henry got inducted, when he was crying? He was saying, Martha, please let Owen in. It's his birthright. He deserves to be here. And at the time,
that's
I'm
what
like,
I was thinking.
Mark,
I was like, man,
Mark, I wouldn't want to be in the damn Hall of Fame
either if something like that happened, So it was an interesting story.
What? Oh, go ahead. I just want to know why not?
Why not what?
Why wouldn't you want him in the Hall of Fame?
I'm saying I wouldn't want to be in the Hall of Fame either, because what they said is that it's basically him being celebrated or elevated in the same place that he was taken away from. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because her whole thing is like, because Owen Hart got inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame like 2 years ago. There's a picture of Martha with the plaque, and she's super proud of that. Like, she's not ashamed of Owen's accomplishments or his career, but her whole thing with WWE is she's just like, the Hall of Fame isn't real. Like
Which
it's
is
just
a whole nother
it's just
can
an
of
event they put
worms.
on
They
that they
need to
can
make
sell
a.
tickets
I
to
think
and make a
honestly,
profit
Phil,
off of.
and
There
tell me
is
if you
no
agree.
Hall of Fame.
I really think it's overdue for them to. Well, maybe not now, but down the line for them to make the Hall of Fame physical, make a physical Hall of Fame or something.
When it comes to Hall of Fame, I mean, I don't know if you
Yeah,
guys know this.
something,
If the person's already passed on, or if the person's still around, is there any kind of like, I don't know, like a royalty you get out of it or something?
No, it's just basically,
Like you said,
yeah,
tickets to sell tickets for them.
yeah,
Yeah, that's that.
and you get a cool ring.
Yeah, yeah.
You get a nice
I mean,
ring.
they
I
give
mean,
you a
and
ring.
of course, to me,
You get a
I
cool
think
ring.
it's just more about the status for them within that. It's crazy to me that they don't have a Hall of Fame physical yet, especially because of how they like to kind of act like they're their own universe, like or that they reside within their own universe. I think
Mhm.
that's the only reason that the Hall of Fame really has any meaning right now is because WWE holds everything pretty much in their own little
Well,
pocket to make
I think part of it is like if you look if you look like the baseball Hall of Fame, it's
yeah.
based like a big tourist attraction,
Mm.
which is what it would be if WWE built one. So it's like, well, where do you build one? Do you build one in Stanford? Who the fuck goes to Stanford? What the fuck is there to do in Stanford? Do you build it
Maybe Florida,
by
like they've been doing.
Performance Center? It's like where. So that's a thing. But what I was going to say is what was really heartbreaking is seeing that home video footage of Owen with his kids and Owen Hart when he was still alive, and
Yeah,
him saying things like, can't wait till I get out of the business and I can just spend all this time with the family and talk about all these things he wants to do with his family once he gets out of the business.
yeah.
Sad. That messed me up almost as much as the Eddie Guerrero stuff in episode 1.
And then when you think
Yeah.
about then you think about their schedule, like how it was back then. They were out there. You know what I mean? So yeah, I can only imagine.
No days off, as
No
Wale
days
would
off.
say.
Yeah. And what I didn't know was that, after everything happened, Martha and her son Oj went up on the catwalk where Owen was.
That was so tough.
Yeah. And
That was tough.
there's that police photo they took of like the view of the ring from the scaffolding.
Yeah, that was disturbing.
Man.
That was disturbing. That was very disturbing. That's what I'm saying. Like that's why Dark Side of the Ring got my vote, man. They really, really outdid themselves on these documentaries on these episodes this time around. The Owen
And
one was tragic, man.
yeah, especially because like supposedly like as Owen's falling, fucking referees there in the corner cleaning up the ring, and Owen just yells out, watch out or look out. Like man knows he's fallen to his death,
Yeah.
and he saved the fucking referee. Like man,
Yeah, that shit's crazy. That is insane. And then to look at she had the little clip that he was attached to. You know what I mean? She had it was crazy to just see how they messed that up. In a lot of ways, they kind of botched that. When I seen that little clip, that small clip that they had him attached to, I was like, no, there's no way.
especially because like we've been used to for years seeing Sting rappel down and then take like 3 minutes to undo himself before he starts swinging.
Yeah.
Then to see this, just that tiny little clip, like that's it.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I'll take the Sting harness anytime, bro. I'm not worried about no couple minutes of getting down. You know what I mean? Because I'm assuming that the clip is for like a quick and easy release once you land. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that wasn't good. That I could tell. Me personally, there would be no way you could convince me to get in there with that.
So I was listening to another podcast. It wasn't Talk is Jericho. It was like the Solomonster sounds off, and he was talking about like the Owen Hart thing. Because if you look at, I want to say it was Survivor Series right before that, they did a similar thing with Owen getting lowered into the harness and then getting stuck as the Blue Blazer, and everybody's making fun of him because he's stuck in the harness and can't get down. And so they had done this stunt before, but they used a different guy before. And apparently, I don't know how. Don't hold me to this. This is hearsay from what I remember from the podcast. But Vince McMahon didn't like how like the harness looked and how the release system looked. He thought it looked too clunky and too ugly, and he wanted it to look better on camera. And so he wanted like a quick release system. And the guy who was lowering Owen originally wouldn't go for it because he's like, "Oh, it's not safe. I wouldn't hang equipment from that, let alone a human being. Like I'm not doing it. It's not safe enough."
Right.
And so they stopped lowering Owen for a while. And then when they wanted to do this, they went with a different guy. And the guy they went said that he used to repel Sting, and turns out he didn't. He was just like an assistant to the guys who repelled Sting.
Oh God.
And then he used the quick release because I guess I don't know if he was pressured into it or if he didn't know any better. And yeah.
That's crazy. That's what I'm saying. The recipe for disaster, man. Recipe for disaster. That's why I always look at this situation now, because I've watched this episode probably like 3-4 times now, right? Like I've just gone back and sketched the details and all that stuff. It's mind-boggling to me how they chose to go with that quick release, like you said. And then after that, right, seeing how Vince how his actions were in the whole thing, because I was already weary of him off the Brian Pillman death, right?
I was just about to ask you this. Do you think they should have continued the show?
No. I think once that happens, something like that happens, you got to stop the show, man.
Yeah.
Money.
I realize,
I agree.
Because I realize, you're live on pay-per-view and there's that whole mentality of the show must go on. You don't know if Owen's going to be okay or not. So,
he's dead. As soon as he
I heard an interview with Val Venus.
Because, they wheeled him out of the ring on a stretcher and they took him to the hospital. He wasn't pronounced dead until sometime after. So they had
Nah, but
I heard an interview with Val Venus where he said straight up, like, we looked at him like he was, I guess, next, Val Venus, and he said that when they were taking him in the gurney, in the stretcher, and he saw the look of his eyes and him and I forgot what other wrestlers he was with, Val Venus. He said they looked at his eye and they're like, "Oh yeah, he's dead." Like everybody, it's like they don't even need to be told, like they already knew. So it's like then he had to put his shit on, and he's expecting, "Oh, we're just gonna probably go home because it's fucking he just died."
Oh nah, bro.
Nope.
Even worse than that. Imagine the ring. imagine just the composition of a ring, because I've had to build them. You guys have had to build them. So there's steel, of course, the posts that holds everything together.
Yep.
On the bottom of that, it's a bed of just steel beams. That's the bottom. Then you layer that with wood posts. So you got wood on top of the steel.
Yeah, it's got a row of 2x4s.
Yep. And then on top of that is a very, 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 very thin mat. Very thin, like yoga mat thin. Then you put the canvas on top of that and pull it tight. All right, so there's literally barely any give to that. So if you hit that from as far as he dropped, you're gone. You know what I'm saying? Sooner or later, just for real.
And what's really fucked up, and I didn't know this, just like a lot of the stuff with the Benoit one, I didn't know this until I saw this episode. But apparently, like when Owen hit, like he broke like a lot of those 2x4s, and there was like a huge divot, like a huge dent in the side of the ring that he hit. And so the wrestlers were told, don't go in that part of the ring because there's a big hole right there.
Damn, are you serious?
So if you watch the rest of the shows, they don't go in that corner because there's a big hole in the ring from where Owen hit. He broke the boards in that part of the ring.
Oh, wow.
I think it says so much about Owen's character as a man that, as you know, because I can't remember. I think it may have been everyone's favorite cantankerous wrestling historian that brought this up, Jim Cornette. But Owen's last words were "Look out." Right? I can't remember who in the documentary said that, but just the fact that
Was it Earl Hebner? No.
No, it was Jimmy Corderas.
Maybe. But his last words were, look out, and he was thinking about others before himself. I didn't want to hurt someone else on his way down, and that was so powerful. And he seemed like such a, the Hall of Fame issue is an interesting double-edged sword, because on the one hand, his wife has every right in the world to feel the way that she does about her husband being displayed up there for any purpose, because it reminds her of that pain. It's kind of like, I had a relative that died, and there's my cousins would say, turning on the news is difficult because they're talking, they'll talk about him, they'll talk about the anniversary, and to them he's shooting victim. That was my cousin. So it's like, for all of us, Owen was this amazing professional wrestler that we really liked, and there are many people that probably wish that he could get the honor of Hall of Fame, whether we understand that there is no physical structure or not. People want to see that, because to the fan, it's a very respectful thing to do. It's like, look how amazing he was. But on the other side of that coin, for her, it's like, you're going to remind me of how I lost him. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd like to think there's an alternate universe out there where, Owen didn't die a tragic death, and his son or daughter want to follow in his footsteps as a pro wrestler, because he was amazing. Because of the way that he died tragically, I think wrestling for those kids is the furthest things in their mind. And it's fine. The kids turned out all right. Apparently they're highly educated. They're doing awesome things with their lives. But,
One thing Martha has done is she started up a pro wrestling tee store for Owen Hart. And like, there's Hart t-shirts in there now. It's like the first official Owen Hart merchandise in over 20 years. Because she wanted stuff out there for the fans. That way, because she's not ashamed of Owen's career. She just despises WWE and holds them accountable.
Right.
She's proud of him going into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And so she has like the shirts available in pro wrestling tees, and they're actually pretty clean. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to pick up one. And I don't know if proceeds go to the Owen Hart Foundation or not, but I think there's something like that set up where part of it goes to the Owen Hart Foundation.
Okay.
But
I'm about to check those shirts out then, man. If you're giving them the cosign.
I got a question for you guys that you guys know more about this. I don't know. I cut out for a while. I don't know if you guys have mentioned this, but there's a lot of, I watch a lot of like conspiracy videos and shit like that. And one of the things they say it's out there, but no one's ever really seen it, is the footage.
Supposedly, there's an urban legend that in WWE's like video library, there are videotapes labeled "Do Not Erase, Do Not Watch," and it's Draws, is the incident with Draws where he was paralyzed. Owen Hart fall. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. I heard they have to keep them for legal reasons, but no one's allowed to watch them and no one's allowed to erase them. I
heard about that. It gets lumped in with the whole Christine Shabuk, which we talked about reviewing the film, about that girl who committed suicide on live, the news anchor who committed suicide on live.
I've seen that on YouTube.
Well, they got I don't think the footage is also, they say it's in a little vault, which they need to keep for legal reasons, like you said. I've heard someone, like one of my old said he saw it because they said it was live on.
I think I've seen it, or I've seen something about it. But so one thing I want to say, and Evan, I think you might agree with me, is I feel like the Owen Hart episode would have benefited from being a two-parter, because it's mainly just about his fall. They don't really spend any time about Owen Hart the person, Owen Hart the wrestler, Owen Hart the prankster. They spent a little time on that, but it was mostly about his fall. Whereas Chris Benoit, since it was a two-parter, they had more time to talk about him and his career and really get you like invested in him and remember like how good he was. I think this would have benefited just from having like one more part, like a two-parter where you could focus more on Owen Hart's career and the type of person he was, because you hear all these stories about him pulling pranks on people behind the scenes, what a practical joker he was. You know, it would have been nice to see some of that in there.
I agree.
Instead of just the fall.
I agree, man. That's, to me, I think that's probably one of the few mistakes they made, is that just not expanding it a little bit, making it a two-parter, like you said, and especially because we know that there's enough footage out there for us to, you know, get a full look at and glimpse of this guy's life and career. I think that, like you said, it was a little bit of a too much focus just on the fall purely, even though that's, you know, a big part of the end. I do think, like you said, he needs to be celebrated overall.
I do get it. There's not a lot of Owen Hart footage you can use because WWE owns it all. There's not a lot of people you can interview who knew Owen at that time because
a lot of them are employed.
Are all under contract with WWE, so that might have something to do with it too.
That makes sense. Damn, so Dark Side of the Ring is really becoming like damn near anti.
Definitely, it makes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dark Side of the, like, I can't lie. This one with Owen Hart, it got to me a little bit only because I'm so familiar with his work and grew up on his work, right? So just seeing the whole thing play back, and when, like you were saying, seeing the shots over the over the ring and everything, it was surreal. It was very surreal.
Yeah.
Very surreal.
So overall, what did everybody think of this season of Dark Side of the Ring?
I mean, this show had everything from murder to CTE scandal. The mafia was even hinted to be involved. I still can't believe that I had no idea about that that one Canadian wrestler that was supposedly a hitman. That was crazy.
Man.
The one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and it just really goes to show that these are people living a really tough life and fulfilling their dreams, and you get a peek at showbiz. What last thing I'll say is there's a common thread in a lot of these, and that's that Vince McMahon is kind of a terrible person.
Yeah, Vince is dick, man.
He's kind of a horrible person.
Imagine how many people that guy's had assassanated.
Or something, bro, or covered up.
Like
assassinated.
You know what's crazy? I heard. I don't know if you guys know who the comedian Patrice O'Neal is.
I know he is.
But but he used to work for WWE as a writer, and one of his old radio shows, Opie and Anthony, he talks about. I like to listen to a lot of his stuff on there. And one of the episodes, he talked about how it was working for Vince. He said Vince is a cold dude. He said there's this guy who it's kind of funny, but not really. This guy who showed up. And he he wanted to be a writer on the show for years, and he landed this job, Indian guy. And Vince saw him and thought, ooh, like, I'm going to have you write for this. Have that terrorist character for a while, the Saudi character.
Muhammad Hassan.
This guy was, like, having to write for that. Like, this.
Oh, that guy.
He said Vince just saw this guy, and he could tell, like, it was killing him inside, but Vince would get a kick out of it. You know, the guy's just cold.
Yeah, Vince is a dick, man. Straight up.
A genius, though.
Yeah, I think, everybody has they prime. And, when Vince was in his prime, he was the man, bro. But then he was also in his prime evil as well. So.
Vince over there covering up murders and
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, damn, Vince over here, fucking mafioso, man. I was like, damn, I'm a little shit. I didn't know Vince was that damn gangster.
Now he's working for Trump, dude. He's an
Yeah,
advisor.
crazy.
Yeah, he's in charge. He's advising Trump on how to reopen the economy.
Wow.
This motherfucker can't even reopen
I
the
can
access.
see it now. See, the thing here, in these
He's the
titles
only
and
white guy to get
divisions,
away with using the
right?
N-word.
And
Like,
7-Up Donald are going to have to go after the lemon lime soda championship.
Okay.
So
I can
so
see
let
it now.
me ask you guys. Let me ask you guys this, especially you, Evan. Like this show has covered a lot of grounds over the first two seasons, because not only everything we covered in this season, New Jack, Benoit, Owen Hart, all the big ones. Season 1, they were covering the Montreal screw job. They were covering, the whole scandal with Fabulous Moolah. Like, they've covered a lot of stuff on this show. Like, if they get a season 3, what is there left for them to really talk about?
That's the crazy part about it, is because you know what I want to see?
What would you like to see?
Even though it's not a match, I love to see just the whole story told. What is it? The plane ride from hell. I would love to hear it, like just see a whole episode dedicated to what the hell happened, who was on the plane.
I'm not gonna lie, Jim Ross is a savage because he has that podcast.
is that the one where Kurt
JR?
Hennig and Brock Lesnar?
Yeah.
Almost, okay, yeah.
Yeah, where they were wrestling and crashed into the emergency exit and almost blew the door open. Jim Ross is a savage because he was talking about that on his podcast, and he was like, Kurt Hennig had a job when that plane took off.
I'm telling you, bro.
It's impossible to get those things open from the inside. That's what someone said.
That's hilarious. Kurt Hennig did a job when that plane took off.
That's what I'm saying, though, bro. Like, I'd love to see an episode dedicated to that. Shit, I don't know.
Have they done one on Brian Pillman already?
They need to do one on Brian Pillman. I agree on that.
Was there one for Bruiser Brody?
Yes.
There was.
I think, yeah, there was. There was the one on Bruiser Brody. So I'm honestly like, I don't know. Like the only thing that really comes to
Macho
my
Man,
mind,
Randy Savage, and Stephanie McMahon.
I don't know, man. I don't know if there's enough there for 45. But what I was gonna say is what comes to my mind, and I know this isn't mainstream, but I would kind of like to see them maybe talk about like the APW incident with Great Khali, where
that would be crazy. You talking when some dude got killed with the power bomb?
See, I don't even know what it was. Originally, I heard it was like a gorilla press, and then I heard somebody else say it was a power bomb, and I heard somebody say that he was fine, and then he was driving home and something happened. I've heard so many different stories. That's why I'm like, I kind of like them to do the research and figure out what really happened, because I've been hearing different stories since 2004, 2005.
So
Crash Holly didn't die of natural causes either, so there's that.
There's that. Because I'm looking at it. Okay, so you were saying Brian Pillman.
I was going to say the Brian Lawler, the Brian Christopher thing, him dying.
I think that'd be a good one because that's Jerry Lawler's son too. That would be a good one.
Ooh,
interesting.
Yeah, like the strained relationship of father and son. Heck yeah.
I know you guys have probably already seen the HBO documentary on Andre the Giant. I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to see if they. I mean, I don't know that really.
They kind of like
they touched on how they fucked him over a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, that would be interesting. That would be interesting to give it a different spin. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who they should cover? I don't know if they have. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did they? They should cover Jesse the Body Ventura, right? But then they should
try to unionize the locker room.
They should do that.
Yeah.
They should do that. Like, that would be one of the best ones to me.
Like a successful. Well, not
They tried to unionize like the wrestlers and stuff to make sure everybody would get fair treatment and all that stuff.
The forces that block doing it. Yeah, I agree with you. That would be powerful.
Yeah, and
supposedly, according to Jesse, what happened is when there was like Jesse in like the 90s, I think he was like suing the WWF over like royalties, over like Coliseum video royalties that weren't paid to him
Right.
and things like that. And since it was a lawsuit, you know, in a deposition, you can ask somebody anything and they have to answer truthfully because it's fucking the law and shit. And Jesse like was talking to his lawyer and he's like, hey, like back in the 80s, I tried to unionize and somebody stooged me off to the boss. Can you find a way to work that in and see who did that? And like his fucking lawyer was so slimy, he managed to take this thing about video royalties and put it into Jesse's whole thing about trying to unionize. And according to Jesse, his lawyer told him that Vince McMahon said Hulk Hogan is the one that told him that Jesse was trying to unionize.
I'm not surprised.
Well, yeah, because I mean, Hogan was top guy at the time. You know, it was in his best interest to make sure there wasn't no union because then that protects his spot.
Damn, that's crazy. That's crazy. But that's why I said they need to make a whole episode about that, bro. Because do you know how hard it will be once the reveal is like Hogan did it? That would be the hardest reveal ever. That should be crazy. Let's see. I'm trying to think of like one or two more that would be really good. That like
the Click.
Season 3. That would be pretty good.
The Click, like how they fucking
like ran over the locker room.
Well,
yeah.
I wouldn't be mad at that one, and if I was to pick one more,
dark enough? To me, there's so much like success that happens with the Click. Ooh, Scott Hall.
You could do a solo Scott Hall one. You could do that. That would actually be really good.
I mean, you can do. I don't remember if they did this in season 1 or not, but you can do one about Vince McMahon driving the territories out of business and buying.
I don't know why they haven't done that already. If they haven't,
you know who would be interesting, even though
and that whole power play he did to keep almost said Starcast, but keep Starcade off of pay-per-view, where he was telling pay-per-view providers, hey, if you carry Starcade, I'm not giving you Survivor Series. And so a lot of companies decided to not carry Starcade that year.
Terry Funk
pretty ruthless.
is interesting as hell. And I think, I mean, even though he already has his, like Beyond the Mat based on him a lot, they made it seem.
I mean, it's hard like 7 more times since Beyond the Mat, though. So there's plenty more.
That one, like, it's a sending off documentary for him, but he fucking. I heard he was still wrestling in 2019 or 2018.
Damn.
And so I
don't think they can do this because he's under contract, but maybe Nigel McGuinness and what happened with him having to retire.
That would be a good one. That would be a good one. Maybe you can do it.
Because I mean, he was at like the peak of his career. He wasn't even at his prime yet, and he had to hang it up.
I think about it, that's very true. That's very true.
Definitely.
Same thing with Magnum TA. So Magnum TA was this big up and comer in the NWA. He was United States champion. Had all this promise. Was being groomed to be world champion, and then there was a car accident or something, and that was that. He was still alive. He didn't die, but his career was over.
Man, I'd love to see a Dark Side of the Ring about Sabu movie. Sabu, see just his history, and because to see how he is now, because I seen him wrestle last year and it was fucking horrible, but because he can't move or do anything. So to see, it would be crazy. This like if they started it with him now, right? Shit like how he is now, broken down, and it just shows how he got that way, like what the beginning of his career was. You know what I mean? And all this crazy shit in between.
I mean, you could do the same thing with Foley, because Mick Foley, he had that whole Japanese deathmatch career, losing the year in Munich, Germany against Vader. You know, the deathmatch stuff with Terry Funk, going in through, even his WCW career. Foley now, he can barely move.
You could even throw it, like you said, like you just mentioned.
He gave his body.
I think a McFoley episode is crossing into season 4 territory. And the only reason why I say that is because there's so much good stuff we can say about Foley. Like, he's a celebrated author, and it just doesn't strike me as dark enough for Dark Side of the Ring for some reason. You know,
Not yet, huh? He said not yet.
he, he may be difficult, and Mick Foley may have a hard time moving around, but that can also, one can argue that the older one gets, you're going to have a tougher, to say, great author, have a nice day, my kids love me and everything. His life is more or less okay.
I would love to see one about
CM Punk getting fired
the.
over his wedding week, and then like getting beat up at UFC afterward. That's pretty.
I got a question for you guys about CM Punk.
What's up?
Was that the pipe bomb incident thing where he is that real, or was that?
It was a worked shoot, so like the stuff he was saying was real. It was like legitimate grievances people had at the time and things internet fans were saying at the time and whatnot. But they knew he was gonna say that, so it's not like people in the back like, "What's he saying? Cut his mic! Can you believe this?" Like they fucking knew what he was saying. Like that, it was planned. So what he was saying was real, but it was planned.
Yeah. So it's kind of like how a speech is coming, and like what it is that they're gonna say almost, but you can't really pinpoint just everything. You dig what I mean? Like CM Punk was like they knew what he was gonna say, like Phil said, but it was still off the top too with some of the stuff he felt. So it was
right.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed the pipe bomb, but who the hell should get a damn episode, bro? And I just really thought about this shit, or what subject should be covered is the politics of Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
All the shady shit this nigga did over the years to keep himself on top.
Like fucking WrestleMania 9, where he's told Vince he's not going to show up for his tag match with Brutus if he doesn't walk away with the title. So they can like shoehorn him into the main event after Brett and Yoko.
All that.
It's crazy. That guy got
buy it if I don't
got forgiven for
champion.
That racist shit he said, huh?
Did he?
I mean, like they
I didn't forgive him.
Not by the people, but by WWE. Like he's back in.
Yeah, he came and he apologized to the locker room.
I didn't know what. I
don't think the New Day accepted his apology.
Or Mark Henry or a couple other people. But
Oh, quick question. What you guys that watch? I mean, more often than I do. What was that guy that just quit WWE and he did like a FaceTime thing? Do you guys know about that?
You talking about that Drake Maverick guy?
A black guy?
Oh, black guy.
He talking about that it was ACH or
in the WWE?
Yeah, I know him as ACH. I didn't really watch him when he was in NXT, but he had they made a shirt for him with like a big his name as if it was teeth, because apparently he had like a big his gimmick was that he smiled, so they made a smile. But when you put it on a black shirt, it's kind of.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Now that's what it was. Did you guys? I mean, I don't know if this would be a subject, but the racism.
Okay, so where I would put that at.
Is WWE racist? I mean, The Rock was champion. He's
I would stop it. But
you can't ignore his body tap and call him Samoan when you're trying to. It doesn't work that way. You can't pick and choose what you claim.
Are you of the old Southern adage that one drop means you're Negro?
No, really though, wouldn't that be a good episode? Like the racism, or not necessarily what wrestlers, but like a topic like racism or fucking
in wressling,
the drug abuse, steroid abuse.
I think those would be good topics. I think that
because Coco Beware was a thing.
True that. I mean, no, for real, you could. I think you should really cover it in wrestling in general, though, because in WWE, right, you can point out a few things that happened or haven't happened that were questionable. But they done erased a lot of that shit now. They done gave Kofi ass the title. They done did a whole bunch of shit to be like, hey, see, look. But
And to their
lose
credit,
it in seconds though.
Every 10 years they give us a black champion. They Booker T, they give us Mark Henry, and then they give us Kofi. Every 10 years we get one.
You don't count. Hold on, wait a minute. Mark Henry
when
do
Booker
not
T
count.
went up against Triple H.
Mark Henry do not count as no world. Why do you guys always say that the world's championship was like a real You know damn well that wasn't treated like a real world championship. That was treated damn near like an intercontinental title. Right?
That's the SmackDown belt, right?
Yeah, but even then, still, it was still treated like that, though. You get what I'm saying? So it was.
I mean, on the SmackDown
world heavyweight title, huh?
I said on the SmackDown show, it was.
Yeah, it was. It was what it was, but SmackDown was always the lower show, though. It was always treated as the lower show, and the title was treated as the lower title.
And then they were also doing those Raw SmackDown super shows where it was just everybody on both shows wrestling. So you had both world champions.
And they always made the world heavyweight champion look weak. The only reason I said that is because it's like when you give guys like Booker T or Mark Henry that belt, it don't mean nothing. Like Mark Henry, especially when he did his fake retirement, he should have been a WWE champion right there. When he did that fake retirement, that was the greatest fake retirement ever of all ever. He should have been a champion. In that time, he should have been a champion. But as far as who was the other guy you were saying? Booker T. Man, look, Booker T. They gave him that title after WrestleMania 19. After that debacle, nah, bro.
He should have been Triple H at 19. Like, but so here's Can I say something about Booker T? Can I say something? I love Booker T. Scott Hall has said that. No, I think it was Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash had said that Booker T is like the only legitimate black guy in pro wrestling because his gimmick is he's a black guy. You know, like he acts like a black guy. He talks like a black guy. Like that's, But it bothers me to no end that he still calls himself a 5-time WCW champion. Motherfucker, you also won the world heavyweight title. You a 6-time world champion. Stop selling yourself short. That's the white man conditioning you to hold yourself back. Give yourself credit.
Believe in yourself.
Take pride. Take pride in yourself, young man.
You guys. I know you're talking about Booker T. I know a good topic. We're talking about topics that would be that whole invasion era. When you hear about like how they were fucking treating those new WCW.
Oh, I would love to see that. That would be really
like Buck Bagwell, how they fucking played his ass.
So check this out. Me and Joaquin are working with some people on a wrestling related project, right? I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, so I'm gonna keep it vague. But we were chatting, and we were talking about all the different wrestling podcasts right now. And I was saying how I enjoy 83 weeks more than something to wrestle. And that's because Bischoff kind of keeps it real. And there's a lot of times where Bischoff will be like, yeah, this fucking sucked. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Seemed like a good idea at the time. But when you listen to something to wrestle, Bruce Pritchard seems to just really be drunk on the corporate Kool-Aid. Because Conrad will talk to him about the invasion. And be like, and he'll ask him point blank, why did you bury all the WCW? Every one of them, you buried every WCW star. And Bruce Pritchard will come back with some shit like, how do we bury him? We put him on a national television show against some of the greatest superstars in the world. How is that burying him? Look, Conrad, you don't have to go over to get over, okay? We gave those men opportunities. And then Conrad will rebut with things like, did you be lost to the Undertaker's wife?
Oh my god!
Isn't he still working for the E?
Man,
he is.
That's crazy shit, bro.
Because if he If he can't afford to admit the company made mistakes, Vince will fire him
I
for
can't
it.
hear anybody.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Like that's the wildest thing. And oh my God.
I think the only best employee that Vince McMahon has ever
Is Phil still
had
there?
in a position is probably Paul Heyman.
We're all
My
here,
bad. I
JD.
panic a lot because I don't hear anybody. My bad.
Paul Heyman. That's another Dark Side of the Ring episode. All the way that Paul Heyman like almost yes, Paul Heyman's checkbook.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Oh, they will have that might have to be a two-parter.
I mean, they could do an episode on that WCW coup that Todd Gordon supposedly tried to do in ECW, where he was trying to like take some ECW guys and go to WCW and not tell Paul and do an ECW invasion, and that's what led to Paul firing Todd Gordon, taking over the company, and that match with Bill Alfonso and Beulah McGillicuddy that was the bloodbath.
That would be interesting as hell, actually.
Well, yeah, it would. It sure would.
Yeah, but all right, gentlemen, it is getting to be about that time. So I think we should call
it. Send us off. We should have Evan send us off.
Oh, you gonna have me send you off? Okay. Well, I appreciate you. We appreciate you from the Voice Party. This is Richmond's podcast and beyond that. For my boy JD, for my brother Joaquin, for my brother Phil. We want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this review of Dark Side of the Ring. Stay tuned for next week. And as usual, eat healthy, speak healthy, live healthy. Let's go to work. Let's go.
Yeah.
Phil.
All right, we are out. This has been the Voice Party. Woo!
Indeed. Voice Party.
We're out.
We out. Very out.